Good evening, my dear friends. Welcome to the session on the direct tax laws for CA Final. I hope all of you who have been who are attending this class have also followed the initial sessions of the GST, what I have taken. Only then we'll be able to have some sort of flow when it comes to understanding the topic. Now, as you all know, GST is an indirect tax. The taxable event is supply, and on supply, the tax is required to be paid. So therefore, just as taxability is important, the same way, even exemptions are important. Exemptions need to be given in a proper manner. It needs to be given to the deserving goods or services which are mostly used by the common public. And the main purpose, therefore, will be reduced cost of essential goods or services which are reaching the public and which are there for the public health and public welfare. So therefore, today what we are going to cover is the various exemptions available in the GST. Exemptions for goods are not very relevant from the exam point of view because it is very huge. It refers to all the essential goods like fruits, vegetables, etc. But exemption for services is quite important from the exam point of view. You can definitely expect a few questions based on exemption of services. So we will cover each and every service which is exempt from GST in today's session. So moving forward, so therefore, first of all, when you have to decide whether this particular supply is chargeable to tax or not, the most important point is to verify whether such supply of goods or services are exempt from tax. You need to understand very clearly whether the said supply is exempt or taxable first before deciding whether the person is liable to pay the tax or not. So therefore, what is the definition of exempt supply, which is given as per 2 subsection 47? Exempt supply is a supply of the goods or services or both which attracts a nil rate of tax or which may be wholly exempt from tax and includes the non-taxable supply. Very simple. As per the rates of tax given for goods or services, whichever attracts a nil rate of tax, please don't get confused with zero rated. Zero rated is different. Zero rated is particularly for export of goods or services. So zero rated and nil rated are two different things in the GST terminology. So therefore, which attracts nil rate of tax or which may be wholly exempt from tax and includes non-taxable supply. When I say non-taxable supply, the supply is not taxed from the constitution itself. That means that supply cannot be taxed. What is this? Alcoholic liquor for human consumption, as we discussed in the previous sessions. And also those 5 petroleum products: petroleum, motor spirit, the high-speed diesel, air turbine fuel, petroleum crude. All these are non-taxable supply. So exempt supply also includes non-taxable supply as per the definition. Non-taxable supply means what? A supply of goods or services or both which is not a taxable supply. Simple and straightforward. I hope there is nothing confusion in that. An important criteria of an exempt supply is that credits cannot be claimed with regard to the exempt supply. That means there is no question of input tax credit at all here, right? There is no question of input tax credit at all. Let us take an example. Hospitals are exempt from the purview of GST. So in case of a hospital, the amounts what you're collecting from the patients do not suffer GST. They are exempt from GST, but all the expenses, rent what is paid for the hospital premises, advertisements, hospital spend a lot on advertisements, all that are subject to GST. Fine. So therefore, on those expenses, whatever GST you are paying, you will not get a credit. Input tax credit is not allowed on that. Fine. I hope this point is clear. So that is an important point. So power to be granted, the power to grant the exemptions is covered under Section 11 of the CGST Act and wide Section 6 of the IGST Act. Fine. The power to grant exemption is given. Also, an important point to remember is essential goods or services. That is, the goods which are for public consumption or services have been exempted. Fine. So therefore, this is the exempt supply. Any goods or services which attracts the nil rate of tax, which may be wholly exempt from tax, also includes the non-taxable supply. So therefore, an important point is a supply which is not leviable to tax also is included in the purview of exempt supply. Let us look at a few definitions which we going forward. Let us see some important definitions. Before that, let me see if the query link is active. Good evening, Kaushiki. Nice to see you attending very regularly. I hope you're revising all your all what we are doing, and I hope your preparation is on track. Agricultural produce means what? It means any produce out of cultivation of plants and rearing of all life form of animals except the rearing of horses. Right? Very simple. Once you're cultivating the plants, you're rearing. Like for example, sericulture, silkworms is there. Right? Cattle rearing and all sorts of rearing of animals other than rearing of horses. For food to fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products on which no further processing is done, or such processing is done as is usually done, which does not alter its essential characteristics but makes it marketable for the primary product. So what does this mean? Basically, the raw cultivation of plants and rearing for the purpose of food, fiber, etc. No further processing should be done on that. So therefore, when there is a cultivation happening, the raw crop which is generated, which is sent to the further secondary market for further sale, that is your agricultural produce. But if you try to do some processing on that and you change the essential characteristics of the product, that is not the agricultural produce. Let us take an example here. There are tomatoes, right? You convert the tomatoes into ketchup and sell it. Is it agricultural produce? Not at all. The agricultural produce is the basic tomatoes which is generated after months and months of cultivation. That is your agricultural produce. Fine. Why this definition is important? Because the activities relating to the agricultural produce have been given an unconditional exemption in the GST law, right? Without any conditions, they are exempt from tax. Approved vocational course is another definition. Just go through this definition. Let's not try to understand what exactly it means and go very deep. Why this definition is important for us? Educational institutions which give a qualification under approved vocational education course. That is, the education course is approved by the government and it gives a qualification. There are some exemptions which are given. So what is an approved vocational education course? Any course which is run by these following organizations: Industrial Training Institute or Training Center. Main characteristic here is it should be affiliated or registered to the central government authorities. Like here, it should be registered with the National Council of Vocational Training. And similarly, it also includes a modular employable skill course to inculcate employable skills to the participants, so that the participants are mainly have imbibe the skills for employment. That is your modular employable skill course. So therefore, in this particular situation, that also is covered under an approved vocational education course. Charitable activities, very, very important definition. Please bear in mind, everyone, that charitable word is also defined in income tax. The definition in income tax is different from the definition in GST. So please don't get confused. Don't think that the definitions in income tax and GST are the same. Charitable activities definition in GST is slightly more elaborate because we are talking about an exemption of an indirect tax. Now, in income tax, when I say that a charitable institution is exempt from paying the tax, that means whatever receipts it receives as donations, etc., it need not pay any tax on that. But here, when I give a GST exemption, that means whatever income the charitable trust does, I'm saying that no GST should be applicable. So, which is a very, very important thing. If a charitable body runs some business and doesn't pay GST, definitely it's a loss to the government. So therefore, in this particular situation, activities are important. So charitable activities, what all do they cover? It means activities relating to public health by way of, so any activity relating to public wealth by way of, there are two things which are given. First thing, care or counseling of terminally ill persons or persons with severe physical or mental disability, persons afflicted with HIV or AIDS, and persons addicted to dependence forming substance like narcotics, drug, or alcohol. So if you are doing some activity relating to public health, between these three, you are taking care of terminally ill patients who may die anytime in the future. You're taking care of them till the last few days are there in the world. Then the persons who have AIDS or any addiction, you're taking care of them. Okay, you're conducting the charitable activities by way of all of this. That is a charitable activity. Then public awareness of preventive health, family planning or prevention. So you do take these public awareness programs related to these three things. That also is exempt from. It's a charitable activity. Whether it is exempt or not, we will see now. It also includes advanced activities related to advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga is covered. Advancement of educational programs or skill development. Now, educational programs and skill development, not everything is a charitable activity. Only related to abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children, physically or mentally abused, traumatized persons, prisoners, persons over the age of 65 years residing in the rural area. Fine. I hope this is clear. Then preservation of environment, including watershed, forests, and wildlife. Fine. So these are all the charitable activities which are covered in the definition. So when it is exempt, we will see in the coming slides. As of now, just I hope everyone understood what are the definition, what is the definition of charitable activities. Please bear in mind that educational programs called skill development, only to these four people are relevant. Only these four people, if you are giving the services, only then it is treated as a charitable activity. Fine. I hope that is clear. Good evening, Rashmi. Yeah. So please, I hope everyone got it, that these are the what are the charitable activities. Now, what are the type of exemptions which are available in GST? Very, very important question, or very important concept to understand. What are the type of exemptions in GST? Exemptions sometimes in GST are given to specified activities or transactions. To specified activities or transactions you can give. What are the specified activities? Transfer of going concern. You're transferring one business to the other. Rent charge for residential dwelling. You have a flat which is used for residential purpose. You're giving that on rent. On that, there is no GST. That means specified activities or transactions are given the exemption. Then sometimes exemptions are given to specified suppliers. That is, in case the central government or the RBI provides the services to the citizens of the country, that is exempt from GST. So these are illustrations where to specified suppliers the exemptions are given. Then exemptions to specified recipients. That means sometimes the services what you are providing to the central government, the services what you are providing to the state government are also exempt. Those are also covered here. There are exemptions to specified suppliers and specified recipients. You have a supplier which is specified, you have a recipient which is specified. So which clearly says that IRD, like ESI is there. Okay, government is giving the services to ESI board. Government is giving the services to IRDS. So specified suppliers and specified recipient. That is, both the recipient and the supplier both are specified. Those are also another type of exemptions which are given. So these are the type of exemptions which are given. So therefore, what does the section say? Section 11 of the CGST Act grants the government to grant the exemption from tax. What does it say? Where the government is satisfied that is necessary in the public interest to do so. It may on the recommendations exempt either absolutely or subject to the condition. So therefore, please bear in mind the exemption can be absolute or conditional. Right? This subsection is very, very clear on that the exemption can be absolute or it can be conditional. Right? Goods or services except from the whole or any part of the tax leviable with effect from such date as may be specified in the notification. So notification, the date will be given with effect from that date. Okay. When so 11 subsection 1 talks about public interest. Whenever the government is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest to do so, on the recommendations of the council may give absolute or conditional exemption. Right? Next one, it may also give a special order, right? The government says that if it is necessary in the public interest to do so, it may give a special order giving the exemption under circumstances of exceptional cases, wherein COVID was there. COVID was given, certain drugs, etc., were given tax exemption, right? Because of circumstances of an exceptional nature, because we were in a pandemic at that point of time, right? So therefore, that also is, so two cases exemption can be given. The first case, when the government feels that in public interest is necessary, is the exemption is required, or in the second case, where the government passes the special order in circumstances of an exceptional nature, right? Also, 11 subsection 3 speaks about the power which is given to the government to insert an explanation. So therefore, a notification is given which speaks about the various exemptions of goods or services, sorry. We are talking mainly about services only here. Goods are also there. But when we see about notification, explanation, etc., it is only related to services. So it says that in case of clarification of any applicability of the notification, the government may insert an explanation. Okay. Within 1 year from the issue of the notification under 1, that is public interest subsection 1, within that notification, within 1 year, or subsection 2 notification is there, within 1 year, explanation can be given. And such explanation shall have effect as if it has always been part of the first such notification or the order. So the day when a notification of exemption comes, the government also has a time limit of 1 year. The government also has the time limit of 1 year. Has a time limit of 1 year for inserting an explanation to clarify what exactly that notification is, right? So therefore, again, as I told you, where there is an exemption given, absolute exemption is given, the registered person who is supplying the goods or services shall not collect the tax. That means he clearly says that if any goods or service is exempt, the registered person should not collect the tax on that. The registered person cannot assume an exempt supply to be taxable and therefore collect the GST on that. That is not allowed. Fine. Yeah. So now we come to goods exempt from tax. What are the goods exempt from tax? As I told you, we are not going to cover each and every goods, very important. We're going to cover only services today because services has a number of exemptions. So that is why services only is important for us from the exam point of view also. But just to see what are there in the goods, GST, since it is a tax for the common man, everyday items used by the common man have been included in the list of exempted items. What are there? Unbranded atta, maida, besan, unpacked food grains, milk, eggs, curd, lassi. All these are some products which are exempt from GST. I hope this is clear. Now we come to the services. This is the notification. It's preferable for you to remember this notification. Notification 12/2017, dated 28th June. Therefore, has given multiple services which are exempted wholly from GST. So therefore, what we will do it the same way as it is given in your study material. We will see section wise. That is, first services related to charitable and religious activities. Then we go to healthcare services. Then we also cover education institutions. And then we go to multiple things. Fine. So therefore, these are some of the services which are given. So entry number 1. First thing, services related to charitable and religious activities. Services related to charitable and religious activities. First one, the services by entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act 1961 by way of charitable activities. What does this mean? Straight away now, GST has put the blame on income tax in simple words. How do you know that an entity is truly a charitable body? How do you know that? I can form an association of person and I can register it as a society. Fine. I can register it as a society and I can make sure that the services are provided. I can do it as simple as that. Does that mean I'm exempt from GST? Definitely not. So therefore, what does the GST Act places the trust and belief on 12AB of the Income Tax Act 1961, which gives registration to charitable bodies. So therefore, very simple, services performed by the entity registered under 12AB of the Income Tax Act. What is 12AB of the Income Tax Act? Direct tax syllabus, please refer. As of now, very simple, that it is a section which grants registration of a charitable entity. 12AB is there now. Earlier it used to be 12AA. Now they changed it to 12AB. By way of charitable activities. That means the services what this registered NGO renders straight away is not exempt. Only by way of charitable activities, if it is rendering the service, only then it is exempt. What is that? Refer the charitable activities definition, which we just studied now a few minutes back. Right? So therefore, services by the entity registered under 12AB by way of charitable activities. Then the next entry numbers you don't need to remember. Just look at the concept of what each entry says. So charitable activities, first one is very clear. Entity registered under 12AB or doing by way of charitable activities exempt. Second one, services by a person by way of conduct of any religious ceremony. Services, conduct of any religious ceremony. That means a priest is there. There is a priest. The priest does puja. We call a priest for doing some puja, for a naming ceremony, for any other ceremony, marriage ceremony, etc. We call a pandit or a priest. That is, he provides the services with regard to conduct of the religious ceremony. That is also exempt from GST. Okay. So first one, services by a person by way of conducting the religious ceremony. Second one, services by a person by way of renting of precincts of a religious place meant for general public. Precincts means premises. That is the area of a religious place. That is, in usual cases, it is a temple. So therefore, there is a temple. A temple is managed by whom? Usually it is managed by a trust. A religious trust is constituted to manage the temple finances. So this particular religious place, the trust, to generate some extra revenue, it rents part of the place either for weddings or for some ceremonies or whatsoever. That is also exempt, right? But there are certain exclusions here. We'll just go that. So again, renting of the precincts of religious place, which is owned or managed by an entity registered under the charitable under 12AB. Again, 12AB here. Even 1023C5 or 1023BBA also is covered here. Right? So therefore, this activity, so therefore, this renting is covered only if the entity is registered under 12A or 12B or 1023C or 1023BBA. What are all this? Please refer direct tax. If I tell again, you will not open that book. At least due to this, you will open the direct tax book and see what are these sections. Right? So therefore, in this particular situation, renting of these premises, okay, renting of these premises are exempt from GST again, but it should be managed by entity registered under the 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. What are the exclusions here? If you are renting a room, charging 1,000 or more per day. 1,000 or more per day. That means rooms also will be there in the temple. Okay, if anyone comes, the rooms are rented. Or if any marriage function is there overnight, the guests are staying, the room is rented. So if you're collecting 1,000 or more per day, then it is taxable. Similarly, renting of premises, marriage hall, if you're collecting 10,000 or more per day, 1,000 or more per day, renting of rooms, premises, marriage hall, 10,000 or more per day. Similarly, renting shops or other business places for business or commerce. You have place where you are giving it for a shop, selling the puja items or any other item for that matter. You are charging 10,000 till 10,000 or more, it is chargeable to tax. So that means less than 10,000 per month is exempt, 10,000 or more per month it is chargeable to tax. Fine. Next entry, services by a specified organization in respect of a religious pilgrimage facilitated by the Ministry of External Affairs under bilateral arrangement. Hajj pilgrimage is there, where all of the devotees go to the Hajj, it is done by a Hajj committee, okay, facilitated by Ministry of External Affairs. Such services by the specified organization in relation to the religious pilgrimage are exempt. Again, this religious pilgrimage should be facilitated by the Ministry of External Affairs. Only then you can claim the exemption. Simply, if you are only booking and going, you cannot claim. Then, services by way of training or coaching in recreational activities relating to arts or culture or sports by charitable entities registered under 12A of the Income Tax Act. What does this mean? Example. Hyderabad Golf Association or Bangalore Golf Association. One of the objects of the Golf Association is to provide the training or coaching in golf to the respective persons. And they also have the registration under 12AB of the Income Tax Act 1961. So such organizations providing services relating to sports are exempt from GST. I hope this is clear. Entry number 80. Charitable activities definition we have already seen in previous session. So this I just make sure this is important because it is very, very clear. Charitable activities undertaken by the entity registered under 12AB are covered from tax. So what are some, let us look at some illustrations of charitable activities. Management of education institutions in rural areas by charitable trusts. Now, when I say charitable trust here, that means it is exempt, it is registered under 12AB of the Income Tax Act. So management of education institutions, if you see in the respective definition, let us go back to the definition. What does it say? Advancement of educational or skill development. And the next one here is public health or counseling. Public awareness of preventive health is there. Advancement of educational or skill development relating to abandoned, orphaned or homeless children, physically or mentally abused children, etc. and is there. So therefore, in this particular situation, if relating to these, if the activities are undertaken, it is exempt. So management of education institutions in rural areas, though it is not a charitable activity, there is another entry which we will subsequently see. In rural areas, management of education institutions by charitable trust is exempt. So therefore, though this is not a charitable activity here, it is definitely a charitable activity when it comes to, it is definitely an exemption is given with regard to management of education institutions in the rural areas. So let us see where these are, it is covered here. So if you see here, but here, entry number 80. Entry number 80 speaks about training or coaching here by charitable entities. It will definitely not come there as well. Then what are the other entities which we saw? Services by way of charitable activities. Now, what is charitable activities? We saw the definition. Then second one is the religious aspect. Third one is the pilgrimage. Fourth is training or coaching. So charitable activities is basically public health care or counseling of these particular items. Then public awareness of preventive health, family planning, and advancement of education programs or skill development relating to these four things. So persons above the age of 65 years residing in the rural area is clearly given. So management of education institutions is not covered in the definition of charitable activity, but it is still exempt because there is another entry which we shall go through in our coming discussion, which mentions this. That is why it is exempt. So therefore, whether it is a charitable activity, it is not. But whether it is exempt, it is yes. I know we are doing a bit premature. Before we covered that, we looked at this illustration. But my main important agenda of putting this question here is that whether it is a charitable activity or not is what we have to discuss. Then hostel accommodation provided by trusts. Now, in case of hostel accommodation, again up to 1,000 per day is exempt as per entry 14. So here the exemption is given by virtue of entry 14, though it is not as per covered under this entries of charitable activities, given as per 14. What is entry 14? 1,000 per day. Any accommodation up to 1,000 per day is exempt. Fine. Religious yatras or pilgrimages. Religious yatras or pilgrimage exempt only with regard to specified organizations like Hajj Committee or KMVNL. In these cases, it is exempt from GST. Arranging yoga and meditation camps by charitable trusts. Yoga is very, very clearly given in the definition of charitable activities. Advancement of spirituality and yoga is clearly given in the definition. So therefore, if a charitable trust is there and it is conducting a yoga and meditation camps, both meditation and spirituality, yoga is very clearly mentioned. Therefore, is it exempt from GST? Sometimes the yoga camps are held along with accommodation. Again, now here the concept of composite and mixed supply again comes. So if a yoga camp for 2 days is organized and the participation fee is charged along with the accommodation. So what is the predominant aspect? Are you going to stay and do yoga, or you're going to do yoga that is by your stay? So predominant yoga object is yoga, means that also is exempt from exempt from GST because it is a charitable act. Hospitals managed by charitable trusts. Now, hospitals have a very, very clear entry and all the healthcare services are exempt. So charitable trust managing a hospital also will come under healthcare services. So this also is exempt from GST. Then training or coaching in recreational activities. Here, as I told you, the important point, arts, culture, sports. You can do, even for example, you want to spread music, you want to teach music, get yourself registered under 12AB, you provide the training in the music, etc. Definitely there is no question of GST here. Right? What about the services provided to charitable bodies? The charitable organizations, let us say, purchased some books, purchased some stationery for the purpose of distributing among the homeless children who don't have access to education. Whether the GST is exempt on those books and stationery, definitely not. It is taxable. So therefore, if you are a person, your services you are provided to charitable trust, you are providing any service to the charitable trust, it is not exempt, it is chargeable to tax. Fine. Any queries till now? Yeah. So let us look at some illustrations. Shiksha Academy and Education Institute run by Sarv Seva Trust, a charitable trust registered under 12AB. So it's clearly given that the trust is registered under 12AB, has organized skill development program for the old age people above 65 years residing in Bangalore. So what does this mean? What does this mean? So here, whether it is a charitable trust, yes. Whether it has a registration, 12AB. Whether it comes under charitable activities, refer to the definition. Definition very, very clearly says skill development with regard to people above the age of 65 years. Okay. Above the age of 65 years, you are doing a skill development program. But residing in Bangalore, he says. So what does it look at? What in the charitable activities, what does it say? Skill development above the age of 65 years. Go back to the definition. Once you go back to the definition, here you see this is the definition. Persons above the 65 years skill development, if you are doing it, is exempt from tax, provided but these 5 words: residing in a rural area. Residing in a rural area is an important point here which you have to consider. So therefore, there in our problem, they were located in Bangalore. So the moment it is in an urban area, there is no question of the GST exemption. So let us go back to the problem here. So in this particular situation, there is no exemption because the skill development program was conducted for above 65 years residing in Bangalore. Then KMVN supplies numerous services. This is basically the this KMVN, what apart from Hajj Committee, the other thing, Kuma Vikas Nigam Limited supplies numerous services like medical facilities, catering, security for undertaking the Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage. So therefore, in this particular situation also, services relating to the pilgrimage performed by the specified body, right, is exempt from GST. So second case, it is exempt. Bhavya Jyoti Foundation, a charitable trust registered under 12AB, has organized a meditation camp for old age people. Meditation camp means advance of spirituality. Advancement of spirituality means it is exempt from GST. So advancement of spirituality is not covered here. So therefore, since it is very clearly a charitable activity, it is exempt from GST. Then Manavta Sansthan, a charitable trust registered under 12AB, has organized a basketball training camp for teenagers. So therefore, if you are a charitable entity and you are registered under section 12AB, in this particular situation, training in sports, arts or culture is also covered very clearly as exempt. So therefore, in this particular situation, basketball training camp for teenagers, since it is a charitable trust and training in sport, it is exempt from GST. Then further questions. Ramanand Joshi, a priest, charges rupees 12,000 for conducting a religious ceremony on the birthday of Mr. Ghansham's son. Comment on whether it is an exempt subject. Very much exempt, very clearly given. Conducting of religious ceremony by a person is exempt from GST. Fine. I hope this is clear. Yeah. Let us come back to our discussions. So again, renting of precincts of religious place, what does it mean? If any premises is there and you're renting it, in that particular situation, there are some restrictions. Apart from that, it is exempt from GST. So therefore, what about the activities which is undertaken other than these two? That is what we are going to cover. So if other than religious ceremony and other than renting of premises of the religious place, if any other activity is undertaken by the trustee, it is very much chargeable to tax. Let us take an example. Donation is received with specific instructions or mutual understanding that a religious place will host an advertisement promoting the business of the donor. Such donation will be subject to GST. That means if there is a religious place, in that religious place, your advertisement, you're giving an advertisement of a donor. If he donated some money, so therefore you put his company logo in the religious place. In that particular situation, definitely there is GST is attracted. There is no question of exemption because that particular transaction, that particular supply is not given. Fine. I hope this point is clear. Now let us take an example. Durga Devi Trust, a religious trust registered on 12AB of the income tax, owns and manages a temple in their locality. It rents the commercial shops located in the precincts of the temple at a rent of 10,000 per month per shop. Whether it is exempt. Whether it is exempt. Please try to answer this question. So here, if you observe the entry says that exclusions are, right? What are the exclusions? Renting of commercial shops of 10,000 or more. So that means less than 10,000, it is exempt. But if this is 10,000 or more, therefore it is chargeable to tax. So it is not more than 10,000, it is 10,000 or more. So therefore in this instance, it is chargeable to tax. Then Sarv Shiksha Foundation, education institution registered under 1023C5 of the Income Tax Act, owns and manages a Gurudwara, rents the community hall located in the precincts of the Gurudwara for rent of 9,000 per day for a marriage function, whether exempt. Here, the limit for the marriage function, how much is the limit, what is given in the notification, that is important, right? So therefore, if it is below the limit, then in that particular situation, it is exempt. Otherwise, it is chargeable to tax. So what is the answer for the second one? So therefore, in the second case also, second case, since it is less than 10,000, it is exempt from GST. Fine. So second one, it is exempt. First one, it is taxable. I hope this is clear. So that was your charitable activities. Any queries on this? Fine. Now we come to agriculture related services. Agriculture related services. So what are the agriculture related services which are there here? First one, services by way of loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of rice. Okay. So therefore, loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing. These activities of rice is again exempt. Services by way of warehousing of minor forest produce. Warehousing of some forest produce, exempt. Then storage, warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits, nuts, vegetables, multiple things are given. Just go through it because there are multiple entries. So we'll be a bit fast in some cases where it is not that important. Any queries you can feel free to ask, because there are multiple entries to be covered here. So loading, unloading, packing, storage, warehousing is there. Minor forest produce, storing on warehousing of all of this. Services by way of fumigation in a warehouse of agricultural produce. Agricultural warehouse is there. On that fumigation or some activity is done, that is also exempt. Then services related to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life forms of animals except rearing of horses for food, fiber, raw material, other similar products of agricultural produce. So all services relating to cultivation. Okay, what we saw in the agricultural produce definition, very same thing. Services relating to cultivation and rearing of animals other than horses. Okay, for agricultural by way of agricultural operations directly related to the produce, you're doing some agricultural operations, that is exempt. You're supplying a farm labor in relation to such activity, or supplying the farm labor, that also is exempt from a GST. And the third one, processes carried out. Multiple processes are there in the agriculture farm. Please go through all of this. Tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, multiple things are there. All this is there. But again, the operations should not alter the essential characteristics of the agricultural produce. That is a very, very important thing. All these activities you can show as the agriculture related services, but it should make it marketable for the primary market. That's all. You can do all these processes and okay, I can sell this. Till that extent you get it, then it is exempt. It is agricultural activity. If you should not change the essential characteristics of the agricultural produce. If you change that, definitely it is not your agriculture related service. Fine. Further activities which are there, renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land with or without a structure incidental to the use. So therefore, if you are having an agro machinery, you are letting it out, agricultural related service. If you have an agricultural land, letting it out for agriculture, agricultural service. Then loading, unloading, packing, storage, warehousing. These activities also agricultural. Agricultural extension services, there is a definition given to that. Certain scientific processes or activities which are carried out on the agricultural produce come under this agricultural extension services. Then there is also an agricultural produce marketing committee. This committee provides services for the sale or purchase, or there are agents who provide the services for the sale or purchase of agricultural produce. That also is an agriculture related service. Then fumigation in warehouse of agricultural produce is also covered. Fine. So further, what all are covered? Intermediate production process is covered. That means the process is totally not completed. Before it is completed, you are doing some production process as the job work in relation to cultivation of plants. Other likewise, agriculture, it is an agriculture activity. Services by way of artificial insemination of livestock. Artificial insemination means to make sure that the milk is good, to make sure that the product which is coming out of the animal are good. Artificial insemination is there. That also is your agricultural related service. Fine. Then services related to cultivation is covered. The breeding of fishes covered. Rearing of silkworms covered. Ornamental flowers, floriculture covered. Horticulture, forestry, etc. All these are covered. And again, as I told you before, if any essential characteristics of the agricultural produce are changed, any process which is changing the essential characteristics cannot be taken as an agriculture related service. So therefore, such they are liable to GST. Also, process which makes agricultural produce marketable in primary market, exempt. But the process, you are making the process for marketable in retail market. That means this agriculture directly you are selling it in the retail market. That is liable to GST. Any process is being undertaken due to which the agricultural produce from the raw stage becomes a stage where it can be sold directly to the customers. In that particular situation, it is liable to GST. Renting or leasing of agro-machinery, as I told you, it is exempt. Example for this, Mulchand has leased out to a farmer Tulsidas a vacant land for agriculture. The land has a greenhouse and a storage shed, which are incidental to the use of agriculture. With or without the premises, the leasing is happening. It is exempt from GST. Then agriculture extension service, as I told you, is what? It is defined to mean the application of scientific research and knowledge. Applicability of scientific research and knowledge which is there here, and for agricultural practices through farmer education or trade. The main objective of AIS is what? Transmit the technical knowledge to the farmers. So agriculture extension services, you're transmitting the technical knowledge to farmers, different scientific methods, etc. That also is an agriculture related service. Then, of course, your agricultural produce marketing committee, which are provided by the agent for sale or purchase of agricultural produce, they are also not liable to GST. Warehousing, loading, warehousing, packing, storing, warehousing of agricultural produce is exempt. When it comes to processed tea and coffee, the tea leaves are the agricultural produce, not the final tea which is done after the processes. So only the tea leaves. Similarly, coffee beans are agricultural produce, not the final coffee which is come out. So that is an important point which you remember. Another important point was the activity of processing of sugarcane into jaggery. So again, here what happens? Even though the sugarcane is there, ultimately the process needs to be done for the jaggery. The processing of sugarcane into jaggery is altering the essential characteristic of the sugarcane, which is why it is not an agricultural activity. Fine. Then another interesting point is milling of paddy into rice. So here what happened? The activity of milling of the paddy into rice was taken up by the government, and clarification was issued with regard to the GST implication. So what does it say? Whatever the paddy milling into rice is done is not an intermediate production process. It is a process after the cultivation is over and paddy has been harvested. So the moment any process is done after the cultivation is over and it becomes rice, further conversion is not again carried out by the rice cultivators, but rice millers do this activity. Also, paddy into rice also changes the essential characteristics. Okay, therefore, milling of paddy into rice cannot be considered as intermediate production process in relation to. Therefore, it is very, very clear that milling of paddy into rice is not eligible for exemption under this entity because it alters the essential characteristics. Okay, so that was basically your agricultural services and various activities related to that. Let me just see if there are any queries till now. Most of your answers are correct, but I hope you're following the agricultural related discussion as well. Now we come to a very, very important component of the exemption notification, which speaks about education services. As you know, education is a fundamental requirement of the citizens of the country. So therefore, any organization providing the education has two important objectives to achieve. The first important objective to achieve is to fulfill the primary object for which it was formed, that is disseminating or imparting the education to the students. And number two, there are various criteria for each person for studying in the respective education institution. So the education institution also may go on a lavish scale and take exorbitant or high fees for the purpose of providing the quality and lavish education and facilities which I may say. So therefore, the idea of education institution, therefore, though it provides the education, the exemption is given only to the education institutions which are clearly formed for the purpose of granting the qualification under law rather than just a dissemination of knowledge. Due to the education institution, you should get a qualification under law. That is the most important. So therefore, entry 66 covers education. Services provided by an education institution to its students, faculty, and staff. Right. So education institution is there. It is providing the services to the students, faculty, and staff. That is an education service, which is exempt. What is an education institution? We will see in the further slides. Second one, services provided by education institution by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance fee. So I'm conducting the entrance examination here. I'm collecting entrance fee for that. That also exempt. In this aspect, apart from the services provided by the education institution, also services which are provided to the education institution are also covered. That means if there is any person, he provides some particular services to the education institutions, he also need not charge the GST because it is clearly given as an exemption under entry 66. So what are the services which are covered, which third parties provide to the education institution and thereby claim the exemption on them? So therefore, transportation of students, faculty, and staff. That is, a transport operator is there. He provides the transportation services to the students, faculty, and staff. So that is covered here as exempt. Okay. Then catering service, including midday meals sponsored by the central government, state government, union territory. Catering service, if anyone provides, that is also exempt from GST. Then security or cleaning or housekeeping services performed in such education institution. That means what? These activities, it can be security, cleaning, or housekeeping, but those services have to be performed in such education institution. That is, a security watchman should be there in that institution. Now, sometimes there is a problem also which was asked on this. Sometimes the security is arranged for an event which is which is organized by the school in some other premises. Sorry. A school takes a banquet hall and organizes the annual day of the school in that particular banquet hall. So in this particular situation, what happens? And there the school took the services of a security agency for the purpose of the security services of the children. Is that exempt? No, it is not exempt. The important criteria is the security or cleaning or housekeeping services should be performed in such education institution. So in that institution, if the services are being undertaken, then it is exempt. Then services related to admission to or conduct of examination by such institution. So admission to the exam, conducting the exam, some services are there with related to that. So like for example, printing of question papers and assignment of invigilators, honorarium, multiple services, all that is there. Supply of online educational journals or periodicals. This also, any service provided to education institution is exempt from GST. Again, now education institutions are also of three types. Now this particular entry, especially entry number 3B, entry 66B, entry 66B, services provided to education institution. Therefore, it does not cover all the education institution. For that, we have to understand what all are there in the education institution. There are three types of education institutions what we are going to cover. First one, the education institution which provides the preschool services and higher secondary education, that is till 12th standard, right? Preschool and higher secondary education. This is the first type of education institution. The second type of education institution is a college which gives a degree which is recognized by the law in force. That was the second one. Third one, an institution which gives a qualification of an approved vocational course. These three are there. So this entry number B, these five things don't apply to all three. These five things don't apply to all three. And also another type of education is your private coaching center, but that also is not covered. So therefore, in this, what all apply? So if you see here, entry number B, all these five don't apply to all types of education institutions. So entry number B, again, it applies to education institution providing preschool and higher secondary. Nothing contained in 5, that is online education journals or periodicals, will not apply to the preschool and higher secondary or education as a part of the approved vocational education course. Now, what is this entry? In the further slides, it will be more clear. Okay, we'll first go through it and then conclude with what is taxable and what is exempt. So therefore here, the core education services should be exempt and other services are to be taxed. That is the agenda of given these conditions of exemption of education institution. First one, educational institution means an institution providing services by way of preschool and education up to higher secondary school or equivalent. First type of education institution, preschool and education up to higher secondary. Preschool, education up to higher secondary or equivalent. Second one, education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. Right? Any curriculum, you are getting a qualification recognized by the law. Degree you did, you got Bachelors of Commerce. You did MBA somewhere, you got Masters of Business Administration. That is also education institution. Then education as a part of approved vocational education course. What is the approved vocational education? So starting of the class, we saw one definition. So those bodies, any courses being conducted, education is being given, those are also types. So the education institution means, that means it is exhaustive. It covers these three institutions of this thing. So therefore, now to see which one is what, let us go through. Now, this is your type of education institution. Conduct of degree courses by colleges, universities, or institutions, it is definitely exempt. Why? Because they lead to grant of qualification recognized by the law. If you pass that exam, you will get the qualification. Training given by private coaching centers, definitely not covered. Now, if you are going to a coaching center, he writes the exam. He sets the question paper, you write the exam. If you pass that exam, you get a certificate. You get only his certificate, but it is not official qualification. So therefore, in that particular situation, it is very much chargeable to tax, not an educational service. Then, education as a part of prescribed curriculum for obtaining qualification recognized by the law of a foreign country. Foreign country laws are not covered, like CPA. Many people do CPA. You get for a qualification from foreign. Is that exempt? Definitely, it is not exempt, chargeable to tax. Only Indian law is recognized. Approved vocational education course, just for you to refresh the definition, this is the definition which is given. Right? So if you see here simply, a course run by the National Industrial Training Institute for getting designated trades, modular employable skill course also is covered here. Then private industrial training centers or education institution, if it is approved as a vocational course, private ITI are also there. So private ITI also is there. They also qualify, but however, the course has to be approved by the government. That is the most important thing. Private coaching centers are numerous. Do they grant a qualification under law? They conduct one exam, you write that, do you get any certificate? Nothing you will get. Only for moral support, they will print the question papers. So therefore, in that particular situations, it is no exemption to this one. Then, output service of lodging, boarding, and hostels provided by education institutions, which are providing preschool as well as higher secondary or qualification under law, are fully exempt from GST. So whoever is given lodging, boarding, etc., by the institutions who are giving preschool, higher secondary, or any institution giving leading to any qualification, they are fully exempt from GST. In case of boarding schools, there are two things. One is education service, one is boarding service. Naturally bundled, their composite supply, whichever is the principal supply has to be taken. The principal supply is education. Therefore, for boarding schools also it is exempt. Sometimes education institutions provide two dual qualifications. Two times the people who study, two different qualifications will come. It shall be treated as mixed supply. The GST rate which is applicable to one, whichever is the higher rate, that has to be taken into consideration. Extracurricular activities or hobby classes also naturally bundled. If you are going to the school, there are some extra classes, there are some hobby classes, etc. All that is naturally bundled. Therefore, then in 31 January 2018, Indian Institutional Management Act 2018 came into force. In this, what are the powers given to the IIM? To grant degrees, diplomas, other academic distinctions, specify the criteria, process, etc., specify the academic content. Resultantly, all IIMs are education institutions as they provide education as a part of the curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by the law. So therefore, all IIMs are education institutions. That is the conclusion. Fine. IIMs, therefore, these days, so these days, everyone want one IIM tag. Okay. Even though you are a person who didn't go get in CAT. Okay. You write CAT, you do MBA in IIM if you get a good score. That is the logic. So therefore, long duration course, which provides a degree or diploma. So long duration course is your MBA. MBA, you get a degree from IIM. In that particular situation, it is exempt from GST. But sometimes IIM also has short duration course for businessmen. Okay, they charge money from the businessmen. They have a short duration course. It can be like 3 days or 1 week or 2 weeks or maximum 1 month, which awards a participation certificate. No way connected to qualification recognized by the law, therefore taxable at the rate of 18%. Then the situation of canteens or cafeterias in education institutions. When a canteen or a cafeteria is there in the education institution, it can either be operated by the education institutions directly, or it can be outsourced to a third person, and third person operates the canteen. First situation, operated directly, exempt from GST. Outsourced to third person operates the canteen, taxable to GST, chargeable to tax. I hope it is clear. Similarly, another important notification in 2019 which came, maritime training institutes and training courses are approved by the DG Shipping, which are duly recognized. They are education institutions. The courses conducted by them are exempt subject to the fulfillment of other conditions. Then some other points here in education services, fees charged for campus placements. Companies are there. Companies come and want to select the people in an interview. So IIM pays the money to them, charges the money from them so they can come for the campus placements. It is chargeable to tax. Now, these auxiliary services is very important. As I told you, this entry which is applicable to whom is very important. So what all are covered in these auxiliary services? Transportation of students and staff, catering services, security, cleaning, housekeeping, right? There is a condition given here. Security or cleaning or housekeeping services are exempt only if such auxiliary educational services are provided to education institutions providing services by way of education up to higher secondary or equivalent, right? So therefore, security or cleaning services exempt only for this education institutions from preschool to higher secondary. Only to those it is exempt. So therefore, if anyone provides the security or cleaning or housekeeping services to education institutions which grant a degree or education institutions providing approved vocational course, the same will not be exempt. So I hope this point is clear. Simple. Amongst these three services, security, cleaning, housekeeping is exempt only if it is given to education institutions providing services up to higher secondary. But if it is given to the approved qualification, qualification by law or approved vocational course, the same will not be exempt. It will be taxable. Then the next one is supply of online educational journals or periodicals are exempt only if they are provided to institution providing services by education as a part of the curriculum for obtaining qualification under any law in force. So therefore, online journals or periodicals are exempt only in case of an institution which gives a qualification recognized by the law. That is after higher secondary. Online educational journals or periodicals are taxable by if it is utilized by your the school up to higher secondary or a school which has or with education institution which gives an approved vocational course. Fine. Some examples here. Little Kids, a preschool in outskirts of Mumbai, has subscribed the online journals on child development and experiential learning. Comment on the taxable. Education, Kaushiki, is it clear? Education institution covered. Please tell again. In a place written preschool not covered. Very simple. Those 5 things, 5 activities, that is services provided to education institutions, are only important for us. Okay. In that, only 2 places the thing there. That is your online education journals, and the second case is your. Let me open that so that it is clear. Security clearing housekeeping. Security clearing housekeeping only if it is given to preschool to higher secondary. Only then it is exempt. Similarly, online journals only only to institution which is granting qualification under any law for the time being in force. I hope it is clear. Little kids, a preschool has subscribed the online journals. Comment on the taxability. Very interesting. See, I told you very clear. Online journals on child development is not exempt when it came to preschool. Online journals is exempt only if they are providing services by way of education as a part of a curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. So therefore, in this case, it is chargeable to tax. This can get a bit tricky. So let me just go through it again. Very simple. There is a table which is after this. It will give you full clarity. 1 minute. Let me go here. Yeah. Just go through this table. You will get full clarity. Okay. Now, 3 things are there here very clear. One is education institution providing preschool education and up to higher secondary or its equivalent. That is the first category. Second category, education institution providing education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a recognized qualification under law. Simple terms, your BCom, MBA, etc. Next, last one is education institution providing as a part of approved vocational education course like industrial training centers, etc. Now, in this case, let us look at the input services. This is where the complication comes. Input services with regard to preschool and higher equivalent, 4 services are exempt. That is, only one is not exempt. That is online educational journals or periodicals. Fine. What all are exempt? First one, transportation of students, faculty. Second one, catering, including any midday meal scheme sponsored by the central government, security or cleaning or housekeeping. Fourth one, admission of conduct to any examination. These 4 are exempt. Only fifth one not covered is education periodicals. Now, the next one is services related to admission or conduct of examination by such institution. And second one is online education journals. These 2 are only exempt with regard to education institution providing education as a part of curriculum for obtaining recognized qualification. So here, transportation of students, faculty and staff also is taxable. Catering also is taxable. And admission to conduct is not taxable. Online educational periodicals are exempt. Then the next one is for approved vocational course, only 1 point is exempt. What is that? Services related to admission to or conduct of examination by such institution. Only this is the only thing which is exempt input service. I hope it is clear now. Right? Another example. SM Transporters has provided services of transportation of students and faculty from their residential school and back to Pathfield School, higher secondary. Very much exempt from GST because it is very, very clearly given that transportation services provided to school from higher pre-primary to higher secondary, it is exempt. Next question, kindly go through it. Shiksha College offering degree courses has to conduct its half-yearly examination in November. For this purpose, it has paid the honorarium to paper setters and examiners. Again, they are not on the roll of Shiksha College for the services. Further, it availed the printing services for printing the question papers, okay, for conducting the examination. Again, as per the table, what we are very, very clear. With related to admission or conduct of examination, it is an exempt supply in case the service is provided to the education institution providing education which results in qualification under law. Right? I hope this point is clear. Shiksha College question also is clear. Gyani Public School has hired Suvidha services for security housekeeping in the school. Security and housekeeping services provided within the premises are exempt. Therefore, they are exempt. Subsequently, they hired Suvidha services for providing security and housekeeping at school's annual day function, auditorium outside the school campus. Very, very important point. The security and housekeeping services are exempt only when they are undertaken in the premises of the school. The moment they are undertaken by the school, but in relation to an event which is conducted outside the school, it becomes chargeable to tax. Fine, it becomes chargeable to tax. That is your example for the security housekeeping services. Next one, DIT Private Engineering College offers postgraduate programs. All the engineering courses include distant learning are recognized by the law. So in this situation also it is exempt. In case of this private engineering, postgraduate engineering programs, distant, everything which is recognized by law is exempt from GST. So this table also, I hope it is clear. Right. So I hope everything is clear till now. Any queries? Because education services can get slightly tricky. So therefore, just to summarize, education services covers both the output service and certain specified input service, which are exempt and taxable related to these three types of education institutions what we covered. Now we come to the next important section of the exemption is healthcare services. What is your healthcare services? Anything related to health, like hospitals, clinical establishment, etc., is covered as a healthcare services. Entry 46, services by a veterinary clinic in relation to healthcare of animals or birds. Pretty straightforward. I hope you understood. Then services by way of healthcare services by clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner who is almost like a doctor, but he just gets to treat a few basic things, or paramedics. Okay, paramedics also are covered under this. Services provided by way of transportation of patient in an ambulance other than those mentioned above, right? So services provided by transportation other than the healthcare, other than the services mentioned above is covered here. Services by cord blood banks, preservation of stem cells. Okay, it provides the activity. Blood banks provide the services of preservation of stem cells from the blood. Such services are being provided, exempt from GST. So therefore, what is the definition of healthcare service? What all comes under the terminology of healthcare service is what we have to discuss. So healthcare service means, exhaustive definition, any service by way of diagnosis or treatment for illness, injury, deformity, abnormality, or pregnancy also, any recognized systems of medicines, and includes services by way of transportation of the patients to and from a clinical establishment, right? Includes transportation also, but does not include what all? Does not include hair transplant, cosmetic plastic, except when undertaken to restore or reconstruct anatomy or functions of the body affected due to congenital defects, development abnormalities, injury, or trauma. What does this mean? It means hair transplant, if you are lost hair, if you are a bald person, just to want hair, if you go for a hair transplant, it is not a healthcare service. If you feel that your shape of nose is not good or shape of ears is not good, you go to the cosmetic specialist, get it done, get it changed. Your ear shape has changed. Definitely not a healthcare service. Exception is if your nose is broken, you are fighting with your person, with your friend, he suddenly punched you, your nose broke. In that particular situation, for restoring the nose, you definitely have to go to a doctor. That is a healthcare service. Why? Because reconstructing anatomy is there. Anatomy, reconstruction of the body and the face is there. Or congenital defects, cleft lip. Many people, children are born with a cleft lip, wherein the lip is not fully come till here. Surgeries are undertaken for that. That is also exempt. So only your simple hair transplant, cosmetic plastic surgery, just because you want to change something about you, that is not a healthcare service. I hope it is clear. Renting of rooms for inpatient is exempt from GST. However, there is an amendment. You can definitely expect a question based on this. I'm waiting for the institute circulation of the amendments as well as so the important changes in the chapters. We'll have a separate class on amendments as well. Don't worry, on all the topics what I have covered, I'll discuss the amendments as well. But one amendment which is not given in your study material as of now is non-ICU. Okay, non-ICU rooms more than rupees 5,000 per day. Usually, if you go to hospital and the room amount is exempt from GST, it is a healthcare service. But the new amendment is, if you're going to non-ICU, ICU room, whatever be the amount, exempt. If you're going to non-ICU deluxe, you want to go to hospital, but you want to feel as if you are in a 5-star hotel. So you pay more than 5,000 per day as a rent of the room. It is chargeable to tax. Then freelance services provided by doctors to hospitals, exempt. Doctor is there, he'll consulting in 2 hours in the morning in one hospital, evening 2 hours he'll run to other hospital. He's not an employee of the hospital, but a freelancer who gives his expertise and prescribes the medicines. The patients coming to the hospital, that is also a healthcare service exempt. Food supplied to patients, very interesting thing. Inpatient, that is a person who is admitted in the hospital. The doctor will give breakfast, lunch, dinner. Okay, it is a part of composite supply. It is a part of the healthcare service. Therefore, the principal supplies healthcare there. Therefore, it is exempt. But you see, your friend is admitted in hospital. You went to visit him. When you visited him, you thought that the food what you are eating is very delicious. I will also order the same lunch as what you are eating and have along with you. That is taxable. Why? Because you are not an impatient. You are having just because you are liking the taste. But it's very rare that the persons will like the taste of the food in the hospital, but just for the sake of example. So any patient who is not admitted is eating something in the hospital, chargeable to tax. Attendant visitor is there. They are also eating something, on that GST will be applicable. So I hope this point is also clear. Another part where it is taxable. If you have a premises, hospital premises, if you see, suddenly all hoardings will be there of different companies will be there, or different pharma companies, this, then that. Why it will come? Because it is a source of revenue for them. The hospitals, if one pillar is there on the hospital, on that pillar, he will give it off to on rent on, say, Dr. Reddy Labs to promote their new medicine, new tablet which has come. Huge boarding of Dr. Reddy Labs will come with one lady saying that like this, that it is very, this medicine is excellent. So therefore, that is you're renting a part of the premises for the purpose of advertisement. So that is very much chargeable to tax. That is not a healthcare service by any stretch of imagination. I hope it is clear. Fine. Any queries till now? Yeah. Arogya Multi-Specialty Hospital provides the palliative care. Palliative care means if the illness, that is the person is not going to survive anymore, so they get the care and the treatment till they are there in the planet to improve the quality of life who have a serious or life-threatening disease. Goal is not to cure because it is incurable. Okay, but on request, even homely it is there. That is very much a healthcare service. Healthcare service need not be only provided by the hospital. It can be any healthcare service by any doctor at any place. Okay, therefore it is this particular is exempt from GST. Only recognized system of medicine is exempt. Allopathy, Unani, Ayurveda, Siddha treatment, all are exempt. Reiki treatment is one is there, it is not recognized. Or if simply you go to one person, he'll just put some water on you, and then you feel that after 2 days you'll become all right. That is definitely not a recognized system. If you are paying something to that person, that is very much chargeable to GST. Fine. So that was your healthcare services. Any queries till now? Yeah. Now we come to the next head, which is services provided by the government. Government services, which whatever are the services which are provided are exempt from GST. What are the entries which are covered here? Services by government authority by way of any activity in relation to municipality function. Okay, under 243W of the Constitution, like laying of roads, etc., or multiple things which a municipal corporation provides, it is exempt from GST. Then same thing, but Panchayat is covered in entry number 5. Any government authority by way of activity related to function entrusted to a Panchayat, that also is exempt. Then this is slightly tricky here. central government or state government providing any services are exempt, excluding the following services. That means these three services are chargeable to tax. Okay, chargeable to tax. Department of Post by way of speed post, express post, life insurance agency provided to a person other than central government, state government, union territory. In this particular situation, it is chargeable to tax by these speed post, express, parcel, life insurance, all provided to a person other than the central government, state government, union territory. It is chargeable to tax. Next, services in relation to aircraft or vessel inside or outside the precincts of the port or an airport. Fine. These services are being provided in relation to aircraft or vessel. That is also taxable. Transport of goods or passengers, also taxable. But there are separate entries. In some cases, it is exempt. But we'll go through that. Then any service other than the above provided to business entity other than A to C. So other services also apart from these three, if you are providing to a business entity, if you are providing it to a profitable business entity, in that case, it is chargeable to tax. So therefore, in that particular situation, I hope it is clear. All services provided to anyone other than business entity, exempt. And apart from that, these three are the other exclusions which are otherwise chargeable to tax. Then next one, the services provided by the central government, state, union or local authority to any business entity with an aggregate turnover up to such amount as makes it eligible for exemption from registry, which is nothing but 20 lakhs. Threshold limit. That is, I am providing a service to a business entity, but his aggregate turnover is up to 20 lakhs only. And therefore, he need not get himself registered under GST. I am providing services to such a particular business entity that is exempt from GST as per entry 7. But the provisions will not be applicable to A, B, and C. A, B, and C is always taxable. That is Department of Post Services, Transport of Passengers, always chargeable to tax. And also services by way of renting of immobile property. Renting of immobile property, property is owned by the state government, gives it on rent to a business entity who is not yet liable to be registered under GST. Still, it becomes a, since it is not applicable to that, it's a chargeable to GST. Then services provided by one government to another government, that also is exempt. But again, here also A, B, C of entry 6, that is your the speed post, all those three items will not get covered. Then entry number 9, central government, state government, local authority provides a service where consideration does not exceed rupees 5,000. Any service it provides, consideration is not more than 5,000. In case of continuous supply, that means there may be a supply by the central government to a regular person, which may be extend beyond 1 year. So it's a continuous supply. In continuous supply, you will see also concept of continuous supply in the time of supply chapter. So in continuous supply, 5,000 per year, up to 5,000 per year, it is exempt. Then entry 9C is what? Service by government entity to the central government. Okay. For against consideration received in the form of grants. That means what? You are a government entity. Okay. You are a public sector undertaking. Major share is controlled by the government. You are undertaking some activity. For that, the government has given you some grant, saying that, okay, this is the grant amount what I'm giving you. With this money, you do all your activities. So that also is exempt by virtue of entry 9C. Then 9D talks about services by old age home run by who all? Central government, state government, or again 12AB registered entity to its residents aged 60 years or more against consideration up to 25,000 per month per member, provided consideration is including charges of boarding, lodging, and maintenance. So therefore, what are the conditions here? Old age home should be run by the central government, should be run by the state government, or should be run by an entity registered under 12AB of the income tax. These services should be provided to the residents which are aged 60 years or more. The age of the resident should be 60 years or more against consideration up to rupees 25,000. So maximum consideration you can charge is up to rupees 25,000 per month per member. Okay, 25,000 per month per member, provided the consideration charge includes boarding, lodging, and maintenance. So whatever consideration you are charging, including the boarding, lodging, and maintenance. Fine. I hope this point is clear. Then Entry 34A, services supplied by the central government, state government, union territory to their undertakings or PSUs by way of guaranteeing the loans. That is, the public sector undertakings or any government undertaking takes a loan from a banking company. The central government gives a guarantee for such loan. For that situation, it is exempt from GST. This guarantee service of providing a guarantee for the loan taken by the PSU, exempt from GST. Then entry 47 speaks about services provided by the central government, state government by way of registration, any land registration or any sort of registration, exempt from GST. Testing, calibration, safety check of fire license, multiple, all such basic things with the government, all exempt from GST. Then issue of passport, visa, driving license, birth or death certificate, these services which are provided, exempt from GST. Then tolerating non-performance of a contract. What is exactly this? Now, a government is giving a contract to a third party, a construction contract. It says that you have to construct this building within 6 months. If within 6 months it is not conducted, you have to pay a fine or penalty to me. That is called amount received for tolerating non-performance of the contract, right? So therefore, that is also a service. I am providing the service for which I am getting the damages. What is the service I am providing? Technically nothing. But since he did not, I am tolerating. What is the service? I am tolerating the non-performance of the contract. He has not adhered to the contract. He has not committed. He has not done what he has committed. So therefore, I am tolerating that, for which I am taking the money by way of fines or liquidated damages. That is what they call that. That is exempt from GST. Fine. That is also an important point. Then assignment of right to use natural resources for cultivation. So government assigns the right to use the natural resources to a farmer for a particular amount. That also it is exempt from GST. Right. So before we continue, let us take a small break here and let's come back in the next 10 minutes to further discuss the concepts of exemptions. We have multiple entries to still cover. Let's try to cover maximum as possible because it is very huge. So therefore, I hope I'll be able to cover most of the things. So see you in the next 10 minutes so that we can continue. Done. Now, welcome back, everyone. So let us continue our discussion of the services provided by the government. Now here, services which are provided by the central government, state government, union government, by deputing officers after office hours for inspection with regard to merchant overtime charges. Merchant overtime charges is basically for people who are deputed for monitoring the import-export cargo. Those services which are provided by the central government, exempt. Excess royalty collection contractor, right? So who is excess royalty collection contractor? The government will authorize a particular person to collect the royalty from the persons who are doing the mining and give it to them, right? So therefore, sometimes the royalty may be more than what is actually accrued to the mine holders, or it may be less also. But in simple terms, the services which are provided to the royalty collector by giving him the respective services and getting the respective royalty. So therefore, that is exempt from GST. Rehabilitation professionals. What is rehabilitation professionals? If any person is from an injury, he is getting back to regular fitness. Counseling, mental agony is there. Counseling happens. Any other activity at medical establishments, education institutions are all exempt, but provided again, they have to be, services have to be provided by the entity who is registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act 1961. Then services provided by a police or security agencies of the government to PSU or private business entities are not exempt from GST. That is, police services are say provided to an actor who police protection is given. That is chargeable to GST. Security agencies are hired for the purpose of any private party. That is definitely chargeable to tax. Example here. Karnataka Cricket Association Bangalore requests Commissioner of Police to provide the security in and around the cricket stadium for the purpose of conducting the match. He arranges security for the agreed condition. It is very much chargeable to tax because it is a private business entity. Therefore, it is chargeable to tax. Then examples for toleration of non-performance. As we saw, in a service of non-performance of contract was there. So let us see an example of that particular service here. So Public Works Department of Karnataka entered into an agreement with Messrs. ABC, a construction company, for construction of its office complex for an agreed consideration. In the agreement dated 10th July 2022, it was agreed by both the parties that it shall complete the construction work and hand over on or before 31/12/2020. It was further agreed any breach of contract would give right to other party to claim the damages. ABC did not complete construction, did not hand over on or before 31st December. As per the contract, the department asked for damages or penalty from ABC and threatened to go to court if not paid. Therefore, ABC paid an amount of rupees 10 lakhs to the department for non-performance of the contract. Comment on the GST applicability. Very, very clear here. He was supposed to honor the contract. He was supposed to complete the construction by 31st December. Now, he did not complete the construction. So therefore, in this particular situation, penalty had to be paid. 10 lakhs of penalty had to be paid for the non-performance of the contract. So therefore, this rupees 10 lakhs, whatever is not paid in that particular situation, it is for tolerating the non-performance of the contract. This tolerating non-performance of the contract, this 10 lakhs what is received by the government is exempt from GST, right? That is an example on this. Then the next service is services provided by the state government by way of general insurance to employees of the state government or police personnel, employees of electricity department or student of colleges, private schools, etc., where the total premium is paid by the employees, students, etc., are exempt here. So any insurance, general insurance services are provided by the state government to these particular persons. It is very much exempt from GST. Then services by way of pure labor contracts of construction, erection, commissioning, fitting about, repair, renovation, multiple things of a civil structure or any other original works pertaining to the beneficiary-led individual house under the Housing for All mission or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana means housing for all scheme. In this housing for all scheme, it is basically provided for affordable housing. So for this affordable housing, if someone provides pure labor contracts, not material, please bear in mind, not material, pure labor contracts for all these particular activities exempt from GST. Then electricity distribution utilities provide services of construction, erection, commissioning, installation, etc. For extending the electricity distribution network up to the tube well of the farmer or agriculturist for agricultural use, this service also is exempt. Okay, now after government services, we come to construction services. Under construction services, we have seen pure labor contracts for the PM Awas Yojana and electricity distribution utilities types of services which are there. Then construction services, the next one, pure labor contracts of construction, erection, installation of original works pertaining to single residential unit otherwise than as a part of a residential complex. What does it mean? Single residential, that is one house is there. Just one house is there. Single residential means only one family, or rather one family with the joint family also, okay, they are staying. So single residential unit, you are doing pure labor contracts. Otherwise than as a part of a residential complex. That means it is not the flat what is covered here. It is a single unit which is covered here. You cannot say take a complex which has say 5 to 10 flats, say pure labor contracts for the entire complex. You cannot say it is exempt. Single residential unit, only one unit, pure labor contracts are there exempt from GST. And then supply of TDR, transferable development rights, FSI, floor surface index, long-term lease by landowner to developer are exempt. Condition is, however, that constructed flats should be sold before issuance of completion of certificate and tax is paid on them. So this, again, this landowner developer is a long time story. So always continuing. What exactly does this mean? It means that any sort of, what exactly happens in the landowner developer transaction? You are owning a piece of land, you identified a developer, you are giving him the rights to development. So as per GST, this is also a supply. That is, you are transferring the development rights to him. You are transferring the development rights to him. So that is definitely a supply. But it says it is exempt. It is exempt if before completion certificate, that is developer starts the construction. Before the certificate of completion, okay, you are receiving you are sold all the flats. You have sold all the flats before receiving the consideration. In that condition, it is exempt. In case the flats are sold after issue of completion certificate, the exemption shall be withdrawn. The exemption shall be withdrawn. Such withdrawal, however, shall be limited to 1% of the value in case of affordable houses and 5% of the value in case of other than affordable houses, right? So therefore, exemption will be withdrawn, but only to up to the extent of 1%. That is, he is assigning a value for the development rates. You can withdraw the exemption, but not totally. Only up to 1% in case of affordable houses and 5% in case of other than affordable houses. So that was your construction services. Before we go to passenger transportation, any queries? I hope all of you are following this clearly. I know we are dealing with multiple entries, but we have to be careful and understand, because see, you don't have to memorize everything, but you don't know which problem they'll ask from where. That is why each entry, all the conditions and all the restrictions and all the intricacies involved in that, we need to be very, very clear. That is when it will be easy for us to answer the question if it is asked in the exam. Next one. Passenger transportation services. Entry 15, transportation of passengers with or without accompanied belongings. With or without accompanied belongings by air, embarking from or terminating in airport located in Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, or at Bagdogra, which is located in West Bengal. So, transport services in air only in this condition. Either the plane should take off from these states and areas, or it should land in the states. In that case, it is exempt. That is clear. So, by air, when you're taking off or landing in these particular areas, exempt from GST. Then non-air conditioned contract carriage. Contract carriage means what? You pay some money, he will drop you here and there. Okay. Non-air conditioned, non-AC carriage other than radio taxi. So radio taxi is not covered here. For transportation of passengers, excluding tourism, conducted tour, charter or hire. That means you should not have hired the taxi. You should not have chartered the conveyance. You should not have, it should not be part of a tourism thing, right? So therefore, simple example, your auto rickshaw is your clear example. It is a non-air conditioned contract carriage, which you have hired, as in which you want to go from one place to the other, exempt from GST. Stage carriage other than air conditioned stage carriage. Stage carriage is nothing but your bus. More than 6 persons are there. From one place to the other, travel has to be done. In that case, also it is exempt. Then, what is the next entry? Services provided to the central government. To the central government here, by way of transport of passengers with or without accompanied belongings, by air embarking from or terminating at an airport at a regional connectivity scheme airport, against consideration in the form of viability gap funding. What is this regional connectivity scheme? See, airports are being constructed in tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well. So the moment such airports are conducted, the government gives a benefit that till a particular timeline, which is usually 3 years, right? Usually 3 years, is viability gap funding is given. That is for them to sustain the operations. The government gives that airport a particular amount. So therefore, if you're providing the services for transport of passengers and you're getting this funding in return, right, without charging much, without passing on the burden to the passengers, that is exempt from GST. You're providing the central government, you're getting the funding and you're transporting the persons, but here again, it should take off from the RCS airport or land in the RCS airport. Nothing shall apply after a period of 3 years from the date of commencement of the operations of RCS airport, as you can see. Then, transport of passengers by railways in class other than AC first class or air conditioned. That is, air conditioned coach or a first class is not covered. All other classes are covered, no GST. That is, your second class and your general class are covered. Metro, monorail, tramway, local transportation, no GST. Inland waterways means within one city from one place to the other, you're going in boat. In Kerala, you'll find a lot of inland waterways. It's straight away not subject to GST. Public transport, other than for predominantly for tourism in a vessel between places located in India. For public transport also, boats and all will be there. It's not for tourism purpose, just from one place to the other, you have to go, exempt from GST. Metered cabs or auto rickshaws, including e-rickshaws, right? This also is exempt from GST. Transportation of goods, services by road other than goods transport agency or courier agency. A lot of us may get the doubt that if I am booking an auto for transporting my products from one place to the other, he is not a goods transport agency. He is just an auto driver who takes the products from one place to the other. In that particular situation, it is clearly exempt because it says that services by way of transportation of goods by road, except the services of a goods transport agency and courier agency. Courier agency, what is that? Goods transport agency, what is that? We'll see shortly. So services by way of transportation of goods by road other than this goods transport and courier agency. In this particular situation, this is exempt from GST. And by inland waterways, if you're transporting the goods, exempt. Then another entry is transportation by rail or vessel from one place in India to the other of the following goods: relief material or transporting, defense or military equipment, newspaper, magazine, railway equipment, agricultural produce, essential products like milk, salt, etc., exempt from GST. Now, this goods transportation service, anyone, if he provides, it is still exempt. This material, even if goods transport agency provides, it is exempt from GST. Now we come to GTA service. Service provided by goods transport agency by transporting a goods carriage, agricultural produce is being transported, exempt. Where consideration for transportation of goods by the goods transport agency is not more than 1500, exempt. Then this is for single consignment. So in one consignment, in one carriage, all the goods are going for the transport charges not more than 1500, does not exceed 1500, exempt. Then from one consignee, that is from one customer, you are charging an amount which does not exceed rupees 750, again exempt. You are transporting milk, salt, food grain, etc., exempt. Organic manure, exempt. Fine. And all these also will be covered. So all these, which is service provided by goods transport agency by way of transport of all of this, that also is very much taken as a exemption. Then if a goods transport agency is providing the service to an unregistered person, including an unregistered casual taxable person. Who is a casual taxable person? If you have business in the state of Hyderabad and you are going to another city, let us say Bangalore, for participating in some expo or participating in some business, you have to get a temporary registration in Karnataka state or any other state for that matter, wherever the expo is happening. That is known as a casual taxable person. So in this casual taxable person, the services which are provided by the GTA to unregistered, even unregistered casual taxable person, other than the following recipients. So GTA provides service to unregistered person, it is exempt from GST. If it provides things to all of these, factory, society, cooperative society, body corporate, multiple societies, a partnership firm, whether registered or not, casual taxable person, registered under CGST or IGST, etc., all these services, it is chargeable to tax. Right. Next entry is the services provided by goods transport agency by way of transport of goods in a goods carriage to department or establishment, central government, local authority, government agencies only for the purpose of deducting the tax under 51. This came in last session also. Government organizations with regard to contracts of supply, if it is more than 2,50,000, should deduct 1% TDS, for the which they have to take registration under section 51 of the CGST Act 2017. So these government agencies which have taken the registration for this purpose and not for making a taxable supply, if the GTA is providing services to such government agencies, that also is exempt from GST. Right? Now let us look at some points with regard to goods transport agency. So unregistered individual customer, if the GTA is providing the services to unregistered individual customer, they are exempt from GST. It is defined in the notification to mean a person who provides the services in respect to transport of goods by road and who issues a consignment note. So the main important point for a person to be considered as a goods transport agency is just give me 10 seconds, I'll be just back. Yeah, sorry for the brief interruption. Yeah, so therefore, the main criteria of deciding who is a goods transport agency is a person who provides the service of transport of goods in road and also issues consignment note by whatever name called. Consignment note by whatever name called. That is one of the major traits or features of a goods transport agency. Therefore, it can be seen issuance of a consignment note is compulsory for a supplier of service to be considered as a GTA. So therefore, how do you know whether a person is a GTA or not? Whether he issues consignment note. First question. Okay, what is a consignment note? It is a document evidencing the quantity of goods which are supposed to be transported and the risk of transporting the goods totally lies on the goods transport agency. That is the logic of goods transport agency. Consignment note compulsory. So that is an important point. Individual truck or tempo operators who don't issue any consignment note are not covered and therefore they are not the goods transport agencies. Yeah. Some examples here. Hariprasad owns a trucks, operates it himself. He carries the goods booked for his truck without issuance of consignment note, whether he is a goods transport service provider. Definitely he is not, because he has his own truck and he does not issue consignment note also. Totally exempt. Services are totally exempt by the entry, which is very, very clear. Other than goods transport agency, if any person provides the transportation of goods, it is very much exempt from GST. What is a courier agency? A person engaged in door-to-door transportation of time-sensitive documents, goods, articles, utilizing the services of a person to carry or accompany the documents. Express cargo also included in courier agency. So that was the services pertaining to your goods transport agency. Now we come to the next question. Next section, banking and financial services. Entry 26, services performed by the Reserve Bank of India are totally exempt from GST. Very, very clear. No confusion at all. Reserve Bank is providing the service. It is totally exempt. Then the next one, services by way of extending deposits, loans or advances, insofar as the consideration is represented by interest or discount other than interest involved in credit card services. That means bank is extending a deposit. It is charging interest from you, no GST. You are taking a loan from the bank. You are paying interest, no GST. As far as the consideration is either interest or discount. Bill discounting also is one concept. Bill is there, bank pays it, it charges a discount on that. That also exempt from GST. But there is an exception given for credit card services. That is, in credit card, if you swipe, you have to pay that amount within a particular duration. If you don't pay the amount within the particular duration, the amount interest is levied on the dues of the credit card. So this interest on this GST is applicable because the entry clearly excludes the interest. Now, what is the logic behind it? A credit card is technically not a loan. A credit card, you have a card, you have a limit, and you are using that limit. So as long as you repay the credit card bill on time, there is no question of any interest. The interest will come only if you don't pay it on time. So that means, so not paying on time and being charged interest is not the same as taking a loan and paying the interest. This is a more penal nature. It has a penal nature to it. It's some sort of a fine which comes if you don't pay on time. Therefore, in this case, the GST is applicable. Then, inter-se sale or purchase of foreign currency amongst banks or authorized dealers of foreign currencies or amongst banks and such dealers. So, therefore, if there is a sale of foreign exchange between two banks or between two dealers or between a bank and an authorized dealer, in that particular situation, the GST is exempt. This transaction is exempt from GST. Services performed by banking company to basic saving bank deposit holder. This Jan Dhan Yojana was initiated to introduce the savings bank accounts to everyone, so that everyone has a savings bank account. So for which the banking company has to provide some services to that for accounting of open and all. On that, there is no GST which is applicable. Then services by acquiring bank to a person in relation to settlement of an amount up to 2,000 in a single transaction. Transacted through the credit card, debit card, or any other payment card service. What is this? A person comes to a watch shop. He sees a watch for 1,500 rupees. He swipes the credit card and buys the watch. How does this work? If the credit card, assuming, is issued by Axis Bank, so this person goes and swipes the card for 1,500 rupees. This 1,500 rupees straight away is sent paid by Axis card on behalf of the customer to the watch dealer. This is how it works. So this Axis Bank, when paying that amount to the dealer, deducts a commission. The commission can range up to 1% or 2%. So therefore, the income what Axis Bank gets here is this amount what it charges from the dealer for the purpose of getting the sale done. So this person swipes his credit card and he takes the watches and go, and the banker pays the dealer after deducting 2% commission. So this exemption says that if this amount is less than 2,000 per transaction, in that case, on the commission, what the bank charges from the dealer, GST is not applicable. I hope this point is clear. Commission 2%, GST is not applicable on the same. For the purpose of the entry, acquiring bank means any banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, who makes the payment to any person who accepts such card. Fine. I hope this entry is clear as to what it does it mean. Then services by intermediary of financial services located in a multi-services SEZ with international financial center status to a customer outside India for international financial services in currencies other than Indian rupees. What is this exactly? It is basically refers to the foreign banks which have set up their operations in Indian special economic zones. Okay, foreign banks, foreign financial institutions, so they have set up their offices in a special economic zone, and it becomes a financial center for a customer located outside India. So this particular bank, foreign bank, provides the services to its foreign customer with regard for the international financial services in currencies other than INR. So these services provided by the intermediary to the customer located outside India, there is no GST which is applicable. Services provided by the Reserve Bank of India is taxable, but the services which are provided by the banks to the Reserve Bank of India, these are very much chargeable to tax. Then also service charges or fees, documentation fees, broking charges, admin charges, multiple various charges are there other than interest and discount, etc. All this, it is not exempt, liable to GST. Charges for late payment of outstanding dues, interest charge on outstanding credit card balances specifically excluded. Therefore, the same is liable to GST. In credit card, there are two things. One is interest is there, one is late fee is there. Interest also GST is applicable. Late fee will come if you don't pay the minimum balance also on time. On that also, GST will be applicable. Then sale of foreign currency between the banks or between the dealers are exempt. But if the foreign currency is sold outside to the general public, it is very much chargeable to tax. Now let us take two situations of a very interesting scenario of these EMI transactions. Everyone has started doing this, right from the online portals to the regular electronics dealer. When you're going to purchase a phone, what exactly is happening is they have this percentage of EMI concept, as it may be either 0% or a nominal interest also is charged, right? So therefore, what happens now? A person goes, there are two situations which are there. Let us see where the GST is applicable, where the GST is not applicable. Situation 1. X sells a mobile phone to Y. Cost is 40,000. X gives Y an option to pay an installment, 11,000 every month over the next 4 months. That is, including interest, the cost is 44,000. As per the contract, if there is any delay in payment by Y beyond the scheduled date, Y would be liable to pay additional or penal interest amounting to rupees 500 per month for the delay. So in situation 1, he is paying 500 per month per delay. So what is going to happen here? Please, feel free to tell your views. Don't worry about being wrong, because the interesting situation which is coming since a long time. So that is why we have to be clear as to what exactly has to be done here. Right? So what exactly is happening here? In this case, if you see, first thing, he is selling the phone to Y, 11,000 option is being paid. Okay. Here, if you see, the interest amount becomes 500 per month, right? If there is a delay beyond the scheduled date. So therefore, the amount terminology is technically not interest, it is late fee or to the extent of that. So therefore, in this particular situation, the late fee, whichever comes on that GST will be applicable. Second one is the same situation, but here the contract is mainly between him and the finance company. In the first situation here, second situation we'll see first. In the first one, X is selling the mobile to Y. X is selling the mobile to Y, and X gives an option to pay in installments. If he doesn't pay, he has to pay the additional interest. He has to pay the additional interest. So therefore, in this particular situation, contract is between X and Y. So therefore, definitely no exemption is given there. In that case, definitely GST will be applied. Second situation, X sells mobile to Y. Cost is 40,000. Y has an option to avail the loan at 2.5% for purchasing from ABC Limited. Right? So therefore, what is happening? The terms of the loan from ABC allows Y a period of 4 months to repay the loan, additional penal interest 1.25% for any delay in payment. So here what is happening? 40,000 loan is. So here the contractor is not with X. So what he does, he takes a loan from ABC Limited. From the bank, whichever bank from ABC Limited, and he pays, takes that loan and he purchased that phone from X, and he has to repay it to ABC Limited. In this particular situation, it is a pure loan agreement. And therefore, on this regular interest as well as the penal interest, there is no question of any GST which is applicable. Penal interest or fines interest, GST applicable only with regard to credit card, which is clearly given in the notification. Any other loans, the GST will not be applicable. Right? So that is with regard to EMI transactions in case of any default, what is the GST applicable. Then we come to life insurance business services. Services of a life insurance business provided by way of annuity under NPS scheme. Very simple. NPS scheme is there, National Pension Scheme. Under this, by way of annuity, the services are being provided by way of NPS regulated by PFRDA, exempt from GST. Services of life insurance business provided or agreed to be provided by the Army, Naval and Air Force Group Insurance Funds. Now, multiple funds will be there, life insurance business, Army, Navy funds and Air Force Group funds will be there. They will provide the service to the members of the Army, Navy, Air Force respectively, exempt from GST. Then Navy Group Insurance Fund to the personnel of the Coast Guard. Again, this is also exempt. All this you can go through, not very important from the exam point of view. Just go through it. All life insurance schemes with regard to armed forces is covered in this particular section. Then multiple yojanas are given here in entry number 36. Please go through it. If you are able to remember this, all the best. All these yojanas. If an exam paper was a very strict person, he will give a question, will slightly change some of the word here and ask whether is it, and give a case study or a problem based on that. So you need to be very careful when answering such problems. So this you just try to remember as much as possible. All these are services of the life insurance under the following schemes, everything exempt from GST. Also services provided by all these bodies, NPS, RDI, EPF, ESI, Coal Mines Provident Fund organizations, everything is exempt. SEBI provides services, all these exempt from GST. General insurance business and certain schemes, entry number 35, you can go through in your study material, same like that earlier slide, multiple points are given. Please go through that, try your best to remember it. Pension scheme under Atal Pension Yojana and state level pension schemes are exempt under 37 and 38 respectively. Then the next important one which is there is 39, which talks about business facilitator or correspondent. So therefore, in rural area, branches have to be set up for the customers. The business facilitator, what he does, he meets the prospective customers and encourages them to open their accounts in the rural branch, along with the rural branch. Therefore, these services which are provided by the business facilitator or a business correspondent to a banking company is exempt here. Second one, any person as an intermediary to a business facilitator correspondent with respect to the person's given services mentioned here, that also exempt. Business facilitator or correspondent to insurance company for getting insurance agent is there in rural area, that also is exempt from GST. Fine. Pure services which are provided to the government, services which are provided to the government, pure services, that is excluding works contract or other composite supplies, including the supply of any goods. So here what happens is pure services are there. If pure services which is excluding the works contract or other composite supplies, that is, it is provided to the government. So therefore, there are no goods involved here. It is pure services to the government, okay, by any person. provided to who all? Government, local authority, governmental authority or entity by way of any activity in relation to any function entrusted to panchayat or municipality. Any like laying of roads, electricity poles repair, any sort of pure services contract provided to this with regard to these activities exempt from GST. Similar to what we saw in the just now, there is another entry also which is there. It talks about composite supply of goods and services to the government. But here the most important thing is the composite supply does not constitute more than 25% of the value. Supply of goods does not constitute more than 25% of the value of the said composite supply. So if goods is up to 25%, then also it is exempt again in relation to the activities of the municipality or the panchayat. Then services provided by fair price shops by sale of food grains, kerosene, sugar, etc. As per the public distribution system, by you're getting a commission or margin due to that, exempt. Then services provided to the central government, state government under any insurance scheme for which premium is paid by the central, state and union territory, exempt. Services provided to central, state under any training program for which total expenditure is borne by the central, state, union territory administration. This also is exempt. Then entry 51 is finally what we are going to services provided by the GST network. The implementation of GST goods and service tax also is exempt from GST. So if you see, multiple things are there. Namita, nice to see you attending the class again. I remember you in the previous class. Good that you are once again attending, but I hope you are revising what we have gone through. Fine. So therefore, yeah, I think any queries? I think one query was asked, then it is clearly mentioned that it is clear. Okay, good. Fine. Then we come to the pure services. As I told you, some examples here: supply of manpower for cleanliness of roads, public places, architect services, consulting engineer, multiple things. Composite services awards the work maintenance of street lights are composite services again, but it should be up to 25%. Only then it will be taken as an exemption. The next one is leasing services with regard to long-term lease for an upfront amount of 30 years or more of industrial plots for development of infrastructure provided by the state government industrial corporation. So what happens is now land is allotted to various industrial units or budding manufacturing companies. The land is allotted. The land is allotted for a period of 30 years or more by the state government undertaking or any entity having 20% or more of the central of the state government. For this, they take from upfront amount. It can also be paid in installments if required. This upfront amount, whatever is paid towards this long-term lease, is exempt from GST. Fine. What are the conditions which are to be satisfied for claiming this exemption? The leased area should be used only for the purpose for which it is allotted. That is either an industrial or a financial business. State government will clearly monitor and enforce the above condition as per the order issued. If there is any violation or subsequent change of the land use, then in that case, they'll be severely liable. If you are not utilizing the land for the purpose for which you have been allotted, you'll all end up paying the GST on the upfront amount if the government comes to know the same. Lease agreement, etc. Okay. Entered for lease or sale of such flats, the owners shall incorporate terms and conditions. These are all just basic stuff. Please go through it. And these conditions have to be satisfied in case the long-term lease needs to be exempted. Then services of leasing of assets, rolling stock assets, including wagons, coaches, locos by Indian Railways Finance Corporation to Indian Railways. Any queries here before we go to legal services? Good. Nice to see you revising the course. Hope your preparation is going on fine. Yeah. Now we come to legal services. If you see, services provided by arbitral tribunal to any person other than business entity. What is the arbitral tribunal? Any court which tries to settle disputes between two or more people. Arbitral tribunal provides the service to person other than business entity, or it provides the service to a business entity with an aggregate amount below the threshold limit exempt from GST. Then advocates also, as you see in reverse charge mechanism, it will come as well. It will come here. So therefore, if any advocate provides the services to the individuals, that it becomes exempt from tax here. So partnership form of advocates or an individual as an advocate other than senior advocate by way of legal services. To advocate or partnership firm providing legal services to a person other than a business entity or any business entity who has the turnover less than the threshold. In that case, totally exempt from tax. So what happens to a business entity who is more than the threshold? Reverse charge mechanism. We also saw in the last class. In such cases, reverse charge mechanism will trigger. Then also legal services, central, state, union, territory, all this is exempt from GST. Next one, services provided by a senior advocate by way of legal services to any person other than business entity or business entity with aggregate less than threshold limit, central, state, union, territory, government or government entity, all these are exempt. Sponsorship of sports events, another very interesting point, interesting situation. Services by way of sponsorship of sporting events organized by National Sports Federation, affiliated federations, where participating individuals represent any district, state, zone, or country. So only if National Sports Federation or similar federation organizes, only then sponsorship will be exempt. Individual should either represent district, state, zone, or county. In simple terms, Ranji Trophy or any other local trophies here for the cricket tournaments are all exempt in case of sponsorship received if it is conducted by the BCCI or the respective state association. How about IPL? IPL, though conducted by the BCI, the persons don't represent the respective district, state, zone, or country. It represents the respective franchise. So sponsorship for that, definitely GST is applicable. Right. Then events organized by Association of Inter-University Federation, Paralympic Committee, etc. Sponsorship given, all exempt. By Central Civil Services Cultural Board as a part of National Games, by Indian Olympic Association, or under the Panchayat Abhiyan scheme. These schemes, the sponsorship are exempt. Fine. Then skill development services are covered in entry number 69. The services provided by NSDC, National Skill Development Corporation, set up by the Government of India, or Sector Skill Council, Assessment Agency, Training Partner. All these services are exempt. National Skill Development Program implemented, vocational skill development course, or any other skill. All these skill development services are exempt. Then services of assessing bodies empaneled centrally by Director General of Training. Okay. Now, many of the agencies will be apply for empanelment with the DG training, Director General Training. These services are empaneled centrally. Services of the assessing bodies by way of assessment in this particular situation. Okay. The skill development bodies which are empaneled. That means they have to be registered with the DG training. In that case, that is exempt. Then services provided by training providers, that is project implementation agencies, Deen Dayal Yojana, etc. All these vocational training, etc. exempt. Another interesting and important point, services by an artist by way of performance in folk or classical arts, dance, music, theatre. If the consideration is not more than 1,50,000. Classical dance performance is given, artist takes less than not more than 1,50,000, exempt. But if the service is provided by an artist as a brand ambassador, in that case it is not applicable, then it shall be taxable. Western dance forms or art forms are very much chargeable to tax. Then right to admission to various events, admission to museum, national park, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve, zoo, all exempt. Admission to protected monument, so declared under the Act, or the time being in force, exempt. The right to admission to circus, dance, theatrical performance, drama, ballet, award function, musical performance, sporting event, everything, but consideration is not more than 500 per person. Consideration is not more than 500 per person, all these exempt. Theatrical performance is theater, not cinema. Cinema is taxable. Only theatrical performance is theater. If you're going for a theater play, the amount is not more than 500 per person, exempt from GST. Then Resident Welfare Association also of recent past has become, that is what this entry number 77 speaks about. Any unincorporated body provides the services, okay, to its own members by way of reimbursement of charges as a trade union, any other activity, up to 7,500 per month per member is exempt for common use in the housing society or residential complex. That means you are collecting resident welfare association is formed for the purpose of welfare of the residents which is living in the gated community or any residential complex. Now, if this person collects the amount of per person, the amount of the 7,500 per month, up to 7,500 per month subscription which is collected by the from each resident, exemption is given. More than rupees 7,500, it is chargeable to tax. Then unincorporated body. Now this is very similar to the previous entry. Previous entry, it is Resident Welfare Association, but this can be any association for that matter. Membership fee up to 1,000 per member per year GST. Any, like there is a Federation of Commerce of India, FICCI, is Federation of Industrial Chamber of Commerce in India. So therefore, this is industrial body for the promotion of trade, commerce, etc. It is floated. Up to 1,000 per member per year exemption is given. Other services, as I told you, transfer of a going concern, that is a slump sale. There is no question of taxability here. It is exempt from tax. Supply of services associated with transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan. Okay, landlocked countries. So transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan. Bhutan, you're providing services exempt. This is also very, very important. Services by way of renting of services by way of transportation of goods by aircraft from place outside India up to customs station of clearance. Transportation of goods outside to customs clearance exempt. Satellite launch services by ISRO or any other organization exempt. Authorized organization like New Space India Limited. Other services by way of giving on hire to a state transport undertaking. Motor vehicle meant to carry more than 12 passengers. So if you are manufactured a bus, you are giving that bus on rent to a state transport undertaking which is carrying more than 12 passengers, it is exempt. To locally authority, electrically operated vehicle you are giving to local authority, that also exempt. Then to a goods transport agency, you are giving vehicle on hire as a mean of transportation of goods, exempt. Motor vehicle for transport of students, faculty, staff. Up to hire sick. We have already seen this. If you are giving this on hire to him, input services to the education institution, only preschool and up to higher secondary, it is exempt from GST. Toll charges, access to a road bridge by payment of toll charges, exempt. Annuity to road or bridge payment of annuity or making bulk payment for accessing the road or bridge, exempt. Transmission or distribution of electricity is also exempt. Discoms, nothing but electricity distribution companies. Other services provided are liable to GST, like application fee for releasing connection, rental charges, testing fee, labor charges, duplicate bill if they are, that is chargeable. But regular transmission or distribution of electricity is exempt from GST. Another important point is services provided by an incubator. Who is an incubator? First of all, an incubator is an organization which encourages people to form the business entities and they provide the necessary support and infrastructure to them. That is exactly an incubator. So therefore, the conditions are here. In this case, the turnover has not exceeded 50 lakhs during the preceding financial year and 3 years has not elapsed from the period. In that particular situation, whatever services are provided by the incubator, right? Provided by incubator up to total turnover of 50 lakhs, right? Incubator is a person who gives the facility. Incubator is the businessman who operates his business. Like there are multiple startup hubs, like T Hub is there in Hyderabad. Multiple hubs will be there in various states. So they give the facility, the startup incorporates and incubates himself there. So in that particular situation, total turnover not exceeded 50 lakhs and 3 years are not elapsed from the date of entering into an agreement with the incubator. In these two situations, exemption are given. Incubator means entrepreneur located within this, the incubator, it means the entrepreneur who registers himself. Then services by way of licensing, registration, analysis or testing of food samples supplied by FSSAI, which deals with the food business approval, okay, registration, etc. Exempt. Taxable services provided or to be provided by the incubator recognized by the Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council. This is BIRAC, which is called under this lot of again startups get incubated. So such taxable services which are provided, okay, in these particular situations, these taxable services are also exempt. Services by way of collecting or providing news by an independent journalist, Press Trust of India or United News of India. This also is exempt. Services of public libraries, lending books, etc. exempt. Services by an organizer to any person in respect of business exhibition held outside India. Okay. Slaughtering of animals, preconditioning, pre-cooling, ripening, waxing, of which do not change or alter the characteristics, exempt. National Center for Cold Chain Development, any services provided, exempt. Services by a foreign diplomatic mission located in India, like an embassy provides the services for visa, etc. Then services by way of providing information under the RTI Act. If you want some information, you can make an application. On that, some fees is there, exempt. Services provided by operators of common biomedical waste treatment facility to a clinical establishment by way of treatment or disposal of the biomedical waste, right? If you have a biomedical waste, operators are there, you provide the service. Exempt. Then another very interesting one is any services which are provided to recognized sports body, which is like your BCCI or HCA or Indian Olympic Association or something. Individual is providing the service as a player, referee, umpire, coach, team manager for participating in a sporting event organized by recognized sport body, or the services are provided to a recognized sport body by another sports body, right? But however, commentators, selectors, curators, technical experts, these services are taxable. The service of a player to a franchise also, which is not, is also taxable. So therefore, IPL player remunerations are chargeable to tax. Let us look at some examples here. Questions. Individual acts as a referee in a football match organized by Sports Authority of India. He has also acted as a referee in another charity football match organized by local schools. So discuss whether he is required to pay any GST. Just try to answer this 1 and 2 both questions. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the queries now. How to memorize things, anything? You don't have to memorize all of this. First of all, let me tell you, the institute will not ask questions on things which are abnormally difficult to memorize. Like for example, the insurance schemes are there. In that some 13, 14 schemes are there. It is impossible for anyone to memorize. The conceptual understanding will be tested. All these test questions you can see. If you actually read this thing, revise the portion after the class, you'll definitely be able to remember all of this. Like for example, in the first question, he acts as a referee football match organized by the Sports Authority of India. If a recognized sports body organizes the match, any person acting as a referee, definitely services are exempt. We just read that, it is there in your mind. You again go through it, it will again be there in your mind. So therefore, once you read all of this, you will automatically remember. You just try to understand the concept behind this thing. Don't try to memorize things, especially in the law subjects. If the moment you try to memorize things, in indirect tax laws or even direct tax laws or in corporate laws, there itself your preparation will not be good. Don't try to memorize things, right? No one is going to ask you the section number. No one is going to ask you the entry number. Okay, what is exempt, what is taxable, you need to have clarity. When you study this 2-3 times, you'll automatically remember, right? So therefore, question here is, if the main organization, Indian sports body organizes, it is exempt. By charity, local sports club is doing it, there is acted as a referee, it is very much chargeable to tax. Next one, beauty soap with brand name Forever Young. RXL organized concert to promote the brand ambassador, leading film actress given a classical dance performance. Now, what is this classical dance? What did we see? Up to 50,000, if you are doing a classical dance performance, it is exempt. However, there is a condition. The artist cannot do it in capacity of a brand ambassador. So therefore, here she has done it in capacity of a brand ambassador. Therefore, it is very much chargeable to tax. So he will try to confuse us saying, proceeds of this concert worth 1,20,000 will be donated to charitable outreach. It does not matter whether you want to donate it or not. It is, you have taken it and capacity as a brand ambassador, exemption not given, therefore chargeable to tax. Fine. Any further queries? Services provided by venture capital. Venture capital services are very much chargeable to tax. Venture capital is totally different from incubator. Don't get confused between the two. Venture capitalists are only investors. They are not a person who are supporting a startup by giving facilities to have their office. That is an incubator. Whereas venture capital is only investment. Then next question, legal services provided by BMC and Partners Delhi, a partnership firm of advocates, to Vastukar Enterprises Delhi, providing architect services with preceding financials aggregate turnover as 21. So here what is happening? The legal services is being provided to a business entity. Now that business entity, has he crossed the threshold for GST registration? Definitely he has crossed the threshold. More than 20 lakhs is the threshold. Vastukar Enterprises on reverse charge mechanism. Therefore, your answer will be the intrastate services are here in case it is taxable, because the legal services are being provided to a business entity who has crossed the threshold for GST. Yeah, I think I suddenly lost network. Can you tell me from where? Let me know if you missed out anything, so that I'll cover it again. Fine. So then minimum balance charges collected by Dhanvarsha Bank from current account and savings account holders. 1 minute. I hope you are able to see the screen. Just confirm if the screen is visible in the chat box. I'm just assuming it is visible and proceeding now. So minimum balance charges, again, any charges collected by the bank in addition to the interest on deposits, etc., on that GST is very much applicable. And this is not a Jan Dhan Yojana scheme. If this was a Jan Dhan Yojana scheme, exemption was there. Okay. Now let us look at the taxable value of supply under GST with respect to the individual services. Just try to work out this problem and see which is taxable and which is not taxable here. First one, fees charged for yoga camp conducted by a charitable trust registered under 12A of the Income Tax Act 1961, 50,000. Amount charged by business correspondent from banking company for the services provided to rural branch with respect to savings bank account 1 lakh. Amount charged by card bank for preservation of stem cells 5 lakhs. Amount charged for service provided by commentator to recognized sports body 5,20,000. Try to answer this. So here, if you look at this question here, charitable trust, advancement of spirituality and yoga is clearly covered in the charitable activities. So therefore, whatever fees is charged for the yoga camp by the charitable trust registered under 12AB definitely falls within the purview of the charitable activities, and therefore this particular fees is exempt from GST. Second one, amount charged by business correspondent from banking, rural branch of a bank with respect to savings bank account. Very crystal clear entry given in the exemptions saying that any business correspondent services which is provided to the banking company with regard to rural branches are exempt from GST. Same question he may ask by putting this rural branch like a Hyderabad or Bangalore, etc. That time we should definitely take this as chargeable to tax. Amount charged by cord blood bank for preservation of stem cells specifically given in healthcare services definition. So the moment it is a healthcare service, it enjoys the exemption. Next one, amount charges for service provided by commentator to recognize sports body. Commentator providing the service is not covered in the exemption. Only referees, players, etc. umpires are covered, not the commentators. So therefore, even though the recognized sports body recruits the commentators, the amount which is paid is chargeable to GST. These are the answers for these four things. The answers have to be written very properly. I'm telling it the answers the same way you have to write. Don't write yes or no in the exam, please. Next one, there are two other services also which are covered here. Basically, these are your export services where and in some cases import services also. Provider of service is located in non-taxable territory and the service is received by the central government, state government, etc. or a government authority or any individual in relation to purpose other than commerce, trade, industry or other business or profession. It is exempt here. Then service which is received from a provider of the service in non-taxable territory, but by entity registered under 12AB. So charitable entity is getting the service from outside the country, exempt. Then non-taxable territory is providing online educational journals or periodicals. As I told you again here, online periodicals is given only to education institution other than one by preschool education, etc. Okay, that means to whom it is eligible, only to an education institution which provides the education for getting a qualification under law under law at any time in force. Then non-taxable territory supplier is providing to a person located in non-taxable territory. That is also exempt. Exemption does not apply to OIDR services. Online information data access retrieval services are very much chargeable to tax. Doesn't apply to that. Also services by way of transportation of goods by vessel from a place outside up to custom state received by the person specified in the entry. It is not covered. Then tour operator to a foreign tourist. This also is exempt. Tour operator is providing the service to foreign tourist. In related to tour which is outside India, exempt. Services received by RBI from outside in relation to management of foreign exchange reserves, exempt. Then distinct persons are also covered here. Distinct person is there. Establishment of a person in India is supplying to establishment of a person outside India. Distinct person, but India is supplying to outside India, exempt from GST. Fine. Any queries? Let's go through this one. Shiva Medical Center, a multi-specialty hospital, is a registered supplier in Mumbai. Hires senior doctors and consultants independently without entering into employer-employee relationships. These doctors and consultants provide consultancy to the inpatients, patients who are admitted to the hospital for treatment without there being any contact. In return, they are paid the consultancy charges. However, the money actually charged from the inpatients is higher than the consultancy paid to the hired doctors and consultant. Difference amount retained is retention money, including charges for providing ancillary services, nursing care, etc., checking of temperature. Department took a stand. Senior directors and consultants are provided services and not to the patients. Therefore, their services are not healthcare services and will be subject to GST. Please comment whether this is correct. Just try to answer this. See here, if you observe, two things are there. One, the doctors providing the services to hospitals, hospitals providing the services to patients. Both are comes under healthcare services. Just because doctor is providing, or rather hospital is providing to patient, doesn't mean what doctor is providing to hospital is not healthcare. That is also healthcare services only because it relates to healthcare. So therefore, in this particular situation, the services are very much the healthcare services. Healthcare services are covered within the exemption. Healthcare services which are provided by the hospital to the patients are exempt from GST. And the healthcare services provide the services what the doctors provide to the hospitals by way of consultations and charging the consultation fees are also exempt from GST. Vedanta Hospital, Gurgaon has its own restaurant, Annapurna Bhavan, in the basement, which supplies food to its inpatients. Patients admitted in the hospital, as per the advice of the doctor or nutritionist, also supply foods to other patients who are not admitted or their attendants or visitors. Food is prepared by the employees of the hospital. Nothing is outsourced to any third-party vendors. Vedanta is of the view that all services provided by clinical establishment are exempt. Thus, it is not liable to pay any tax. You are required to test the correctness of the view taken by Vedanta Hospital. Try to answer this. So therefore, what is happening here? The food which is given to the inpatient, that is a person who is admitted in the hospital, are only exempt. Very, very clear. The restriction is very clearly given. Any other food is being provided to the attendants or the visitors or the patients who is not admitted, very much chargeable to GST. IIM Indore organizes placement drive for the students studying in the campus. Many multinational companies register for the placement program, pay the registration fee of 1 lakh. IIM Indore is of the view that such consideration received from MNCs for participating is exempt. Please explain whether the view taken by IIM Indore is correct. Fees taken by the educational institution from the MNCs are not given any exemption. They are very much chargeable to tax. They don't come under the education services. So therefore, the view which is taken by IIM Indore saying that the GST is exempt because it is being provided to the person is definitely not correct. On campus placements, GST is very much applicable. India corporations also try to answer. It is taxable, I think we read. See, if you see, all of you are able to answer these questions. That means what? You are able to answer these questions because you have just read the provisions. So the questions actually don't attack your memory. You understood the concept. That is why you are able to answer the question. Why you understood the concept? Very similar. In the IIM case, education services are exempt. Campus placement is not education. It's basic common sense. It is not at all education. Therefore, it is taxable. So please try to revise this 2 or 3 times, the entire PPT you revise. You'll be able to easily remember and recollect and answer the questions. Don't worry about forgetting exemptions. You'll never forget. I'm very, very clear. Once you know that this is exempt, you'll remember always that it is exempt. India Corporations has taken a loan from a banking company, Wellness Bank. Loan was guaranteed by the central government. India Corporations defaulted in repayment of such loan. Examine whether the services of guaranteed of loan by the central government is liable to GST. We have already run this also in an entry. The government, if it guarantees the repayment of a loan by the PSU, that is clearly covered in the exemption notification. So therefore, it is not liable to GST, it is exempt. Bhushan Biomedical Waste is providing service of biomedical waste treatment to Vishuddhi Pharma Company. For these services, Bhushan Biomedical Waste has been charged a fixed sum. Whether this service provided by Bhushan Biomedical Waste is exempt under GST. This is a very interesting question, Bhushan ka. We have read an entry. Let us go back to the entry just to refresh your memory. Biomedical, we read this somewhere. Let me see if I'm able to find it. Let me do a Control F otherwise. This only has come. Second. I'll have to locate this entry now. Just give me some time. Or if someone can help me with which slide, but I think I can tell the explanation now itself, but I want to show that because you understand the logic as to why it is chargeable to tax. That is the main reason why I wanted to take you to that entry and then explain this. Okay. No worries. I'll just tell you the concept and later maybe you can refer to that entry as well so that you understand what exactly is the logic for answering this question. Meanwhile, any answers from your side? Yeah. No worries. I'll go back to the, I'll tell you which entry that is so that you can understand. Now, this biomedical waste is providing the service of biomedical waste treatment to Vishuddhi Pharma Company. Now here, exemption, the entry, what exactly it says? It says that if any company is providing the service of biomedical waste treatment to a clinical establishment, only then the exemption can be given. Therefore, the definition of clinical establishment is very important here. Clinical establishment is either a hospital or a clinic or any sort of paramedical treatment wherein medical treatment is usually given. But here what is happening? It is providing the service of biomedical waste treatment to a pharma company. A pharma company is nowhere a clinical establishment. So therefore, this is not exempt, but it is very much chargeable to tax. Fine. So I'll locate that entry and give reference to that. Don't worry. Meanwhile, you try to answer the next one. That is British High Commission, Chief Diplomatic Mission located providing advisory services to students willing travel to UK. Organized a seminar, registration of 5,000 were required whether the advisory services are liable to GST. Diplomatic mission services means only the official services are chargeable, are exempt from GST. That is that visa processing fee or any government, any fee what they charge, usually the consulate charges, those are only exempt from GST. But if they do one seminar and they are charging some money from the students, that doesn't come under that foreign diplomatic mission services. That is just as a promotion thing what they are doing. So very much that is chargeable to tax. This is the answer for the British High Commission problem. Now, please try to answer this problem. Very, very interesting question. Very, very interesting question based on input services to education institutions. Based on input services to education institutions. Here is the end. Entry number 75 under others. Services by operator of common medical waste treatment facility to a clinical establishment. So this clinical establishment word you have to recollect. Otherwise, you will get confused. So therefore, biomedical to a clinical establishment is exempt, but not to a pharma company. Pharma company is not a clinical establishment. That I'm sure most of you will agree with. Yeah, let us look at this now. GST, whether it is payable in respect of independent services, fees charged from office staff for in-house personality development course conducted by Mungerilal College, providing education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by law, rupees 10,000. Please try to answer this one. So here what happens is the college education institution is providing a curriculum which grants a qualification of law under force. So therefore, whatever personality development it conducts for the staff, it is definitely exempt from GST, right? They're very, very similar because it is clearly given by the notification and it falls within the definition of the education institution. The next one, bus fees collected by students by Rosemary College, providing education as a part of the curriculum for obtaining the qualification of under the law. In this particular situation, the Rosemary College, again here, it provides a education as a part of the curriculum, which is recognized by the law in force. So definitely, whatever transport services which is provided by the college to the students, it is exempt from GST. Here we may get slightly confused. Here, bus fees collected by the students by Rosemary College is what he says. Don't get confused that the amount what Rosemary is paying to the for bus hiring. Don't get confused with that. This is not an input supply, but this is an output supply, right? This is an output supply, and you have to Accordingly, answer this question. Then, housekeeping services provided by Messrs. Cleanwell to Himavarsha Montessori for cleaning its playground and classrooms. Now, this is an input service what is covered here. In this particular situation, housekeeping services, they should be performed in the education institution for the purpose. Now, here if you see, whereas the housekeeping service being performed, it is very much performed by in the premises itself for cleaning the playground and the classrooms. So therefore, since pre-primary to higher secondary, everything is covered, it is very much exempt from GST. Then InfoLink supplied tracing alphabets online educational journal to students of UKG class of Sydney Montessori School. Online educational journals only exempt with regard to education institutions which run for providing a qualification granted by law enforced. That is simple terms, degree education or any other qualification which are this thing. So online educational journals supplied to pre-primary up to higher secondary, it's not covered in that exemption. Therefore, fourth one, it is very much chargeable to tax. Then, Sugam Charitable Trust, a trust registered under 12AB, provides the following information relating to the supply of the services. Renting of residential dwelling, 18 lakhs. Renting of rooms for devotees, Kalyana Mandapam renting, that is marriage function hall. Renting of community halls, renting of shops for business, renting of shops for business. Compute the GST liability, assuming the amount are exclusive of GST. So what happens here? First one, renting of residential dwelling, clearly given by an entry. Residential dwelling, if you are given on rent, totally exempt from GST. On first thing, there is no GST, which is charged at all. Second one, renting of rooms for devotees, charges per day, rupees 750. Below 1,000 rupees per day, if the charges are there, not subject to GST. Second one also exempt. Renting of Kalyana Mandapam, that is marriage function hall, charges per day 15,000. More than 10,000 or more, subject to GST. So 12 lakhs into 18% will be the GST on rent. The third point. Fourth one, community halls and open space 7,500 per day. The limit again given here is less than 10,000. Therefore, it is exempt. Fifth one also less than 10,000 exempt. Sixth one, this 12,000, more than 10,000 is chargeable to tax. So 7,50,000 into 18% will be the GST which is applicable. So therefore, this is the solution for this. I hope this is the first point what we discussed in today's session, that is your charitable activities. Right. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. There is another problem which is there, but I want you to work it out at, we'll cover it as a case study post our chapters, because now if I do that problem, it has a mix of everything. We'll cover that as a case study positively post my completion of the other topics, so that we can integrate the concepts of input tax credit exemptions and the charge of GST, everything in the same. So any further queries in today's class? Let me just go through the link. Yeah, so so don't worry about remembering all of this. You will definitely for sure remember. I'm very sure about that. So just please revise what we have read. You will have multiple queries, I'm sure about that. Please feel free to ask your queries in our next session, or you can even upload it and take it for my queries and send it to the BOS, so that I can be able to address the same. Right. So thank you very much for attending today's session. Please revise once again. It's very, very important. My next session will be 1 minute. I'll just tell you. Next session, I'm going to cover input tax credit, which is another favorite topic of mine. And I'm sure it is one of the favorite topic of all of you as well. Is the class will be held on February 7th. So meanwhile, some other faculty will take the concepts of time value and place of supply. Please pay attention to that also, because a lot of continuity is involved. So I will meet you on February 7th. There will be 4 classes, 7th, 9th, 11th, and 14th, where we will cover the concept of input tax credit in detail. Thank you very much for attending today's session. Feel free to post your queries, and all the best for your preparation. Thank you. Good night.